Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 531. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
My name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. James, Zach, Welcome to the show.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
No problem, pal.
What's up?
Okay, bud.
We're just going to keep one-upping it until one of us gives in.
Sure.
Whatever you want,
what would be
champ.
the next from Bud?
No problem, Chief.
Okay, Scout, calm down.
Chief. That's racist.
It's not racist.
I mean,
I
don't think you should call people chief anymore.
Really? You don't think you should call people Chief?
And I mean, you certainly shouldn't dress up like a chief. So why would you be calling other people chief?
Well, I think it's like chief as in the person in charge, not as chief as in like I don't think you should call a Native American.
Where do you think
person
that term
chief,
comes from, Kyle?
unless they're an actual chief.
The word chief, did that come from Europe?
It comes from the French word of chef.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Ha. So the French crossed the ocean and then American Indians adapted the word?
Yeah, you know that the French were in Wisconsin before the other Europeans were here. Like a lot of the, at least in this area, a lot of the names we have for Native American areas were kind of given by the French, or the French heard Native American words and were like, that sounds like what we think it is.
Interesting. I don't know if that's true, but I'll believe you because I don't have any other reason to not believe it.
What I told you was just true. I can tell you that.
I don't know if that's true.
Like the lakes here, we have 4 lakes: Mendota,
Yeah.
Monona, Wabisa, Kaganza.
Uh-huh.
And those are not their Native American lakes, but the French were like, well, here's some Native American sounding words. We'll call these lakes.
So the French landed in Wisconsin and named all the lakes.
More or less, yes.
And then went
they
throughout the
landed in
entirety
Wisconsin.
of the
There's-
country and told all the Native Americans that they should use chief.
I love James's how he describes things like they named all the lakes,
Yeah,
the entirety of the country, told all
I'm just
of the
saying,
people.
it's not like just American Indians from Wisconsin call their leader chief.
No, but I'm using my context to inform my greater worldview.
Okay.
Like in Wisconsin, we have Fond du Lac, which is French for foot of the lake. We have Eau Claire, which is French for clear water. Or yeah. So there's a lot
I
of
thought it was French for like donut.
no. That's an Eclair. Eau Claire is clear water.
Right, but the idea that the French landed and then named the lakes has almost no connection to the idea that the American Indians then adapted or adopted all of those names. You know what I mean? Like, where's the connection there?
I don't know if Native Americans ever called anyone within their tribe chief, or that was just the European, like, well, that person's in charge and we're the French, so they are the chef, the chief. And then maybe over time, after being called chief, repeatedly, they're like, fine, we'll be called chief. But I doubt that was the word for the leader of your tribe pre-Europeans arriving.
Could be. But I don't know. It could be the original term.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna kind of go with the fact that the French have this word for chef, which sounds very similar to chief for me. And I don't think that's a coincidence.
Sure. Maybe. So you don't know that for sure. You're just assuming because
Yeah,
it's a French
I'm
word.
not a French Native American historian.
You're assuming that the American Indians in Arizona, the term passed all the way from Maryland to Arizona, and then they adopted it.
How's Maryland brought into this?
Wisconsin, whatever.
Oh, did you
Maryland,
mix up
Wisconsin,
and Maryland? Yeah.
practically the
I mean,
same place.
It's
Yeah.
one. See,
No.
people.
James is definitely going to win this argument.
Yeah, people just ignore the Midwest. They're like, oh, it's all the same. Even though Maryland's on the coast, it's not even the Midwest.
Maryland's not in the Midwest.
I know.
but
I'm
yeah.
aware of that.
That's amazing.
I'm
James,
not
you
trying
have
to win
any
any argument, by the way. I'm just trying to get some clarity on this topic.
Yeah, he just wants clarity.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to use my best knowledge to inform you. You're the ignorant one in this situation, so
Is that
I'm just trying
true?
to make you less ignorant.
I don't know if that's true.
We can take a vote here.
Just because somebody's confident in something doesn't mean they're not ignorant about it.
No. Confidence feigns knowledge.
This is going to be a wild episode.
Zach, do you have any other questions you'd like to follow up about the French naming of Native American places, people, and things?
I just want to say that we know for sure the French and the Native Americans had contact because of the French-Indian War.
Sure.
Exactly. See, Zach's using history also. Now, was that in Maryland or Arizona? I don't remember.
I believe it was in Canada.
Yes, I
I
believe
don't
you're
really
right.
know.
Well, you guys can, roll the dice and use the C word all you want, but I'm going to abstain from now on. All right.
So like at my work,
All right, bucko.
there's a chief engineer. Is that a racist term we're using?
I mean, I couldn't tell you.
Is this
But
like you
maybe.
can't use the word master bedroom anymore?
Is that true?
I know on like the HD TV shows, they now call it the primary bedroom.
Interesting, because that's where the master used to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, I don't know if the word master bedroom actually connected to slave times or if that just refers to more like the man of the house. So if it's either it's antiquated either way.
Sexist or racist.
Huh? It's either sexist or racist. So you can pick your poison on that one.
Interesting. I'll have to change that too.
Yeah. So you have your primary bedroom, your primary bathroom.
Sure.
Yep.
I mean, that makes sense, especially with like more blended households, more generations living under one roof, at least for Americans. Other countries have done that and have been doing that. But here in the United States, it's a newer-ish trend. And so, it feels weird for like you to have the master bedroom and your mother-in-law to live in the same house. And yet you refer to your bedroom as the master bedroom. That's
Well, yeah, she has the matriarch bedroom.
Sure. That's how they put it in the plans, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. There is something called like a in-law suite, right? Or something like that. I've seen
Isn't that
those.
usually
on
above the
those kinds of
garage?
shows. Yeah.
If you have like
an
a detached
addition above the
garage. Yep.
Yeah.
Again, a wild episode. It's just going to be.
This is exactly what we had scripted to talk
It's
about.
going to be ripe. Yeah, we're crossing off the agenda items one at a time.
This is A Way with Words, right? I'm on the right show?
Your other alternative podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're here to not talk about the origin of words and American history. What are we here to talk about? Zach, what are we here to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about the new Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie.
Yeah.
And our top 10 favorite kids cartoon animated shows, TV shows.
Cartoon animated,
TV.
very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get that.
I got your idea. Yeah.
Cartoons.
Yep.
Before we do, I have a quick check-in.
Oh, great.
While you guys were blathering on about whatever you were talking about.
Dropping knowledge. Thank you.
Yep.
Truth bombs.
My niece texted me and had some movie comments, and I wanted to share them with you guys.
All right.
This is like breaking news.
This is breaking news.
Wow.
This is like just came out, just hot off the press.
Great.
She said Red Riding Hood has to be one of the worst movies ever. Now I'm a little confused because I don't know. Is there a new Red Riding Hood movie out?
I don't know about new, but like a couple years ago.
There was
one.
Hoodwinked from like 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah. That's also based on Red Riding Hood. I agree. But there's an actual Red Riding Hood movie from 2011.
Oh.
That I guess was produced by Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's your guess?
Was that a horror movie?
No, I'm just seeing that. But it starred
okay.
Amanda Seyfried and Gary Oldman, amongst others.
Let me guess. Gary Oldman was the Red Riding Hood and Seyfried was the wolf.
No.
Darn it.
Other way around.
Okay.
She said, my daddy says that the people were dumb in Red Riding Hood, the movie.
Red Riding Hood or Little Red Riding Hood?
She called it Red Riding Hood.
Interesting. Did you text her back cartoon or live action ?
Animated cartoon.
I think this was the most recent live action version of that story.
I'm asking her.
And I'm pretty sure I've seen this.
Okay. And was it one of the worst movies of all time? And were the people in it dumb?
I doubt it was one of the worst of all time, or else I'd probably remember it. And I don't remember much about it, but I did give it a 2.5, which makes it just average for me.
Okay, it is the Amanda Seyfried movie. She says that she's great in it, but the movie is terrible. So I asked her, I need your list of the 5 worst movies you've ever seen.
Oh, great.
And she texted it back to me.
Awesome.
So here's what we got. Red Riding Hood. Pacific Rim. Which I didn't like that movie, actually.
You didn't like Pacific Rim at all?
I didn't. No, you liked it. I didn't like it.
I think that's the first time you've ever admitted publicly that you literally don't like that movie.
No, we did a whole show on it.
I think even during that episode, you were like maybe lukewarm or, wasn't your favorite. That's different than proclaiming you dislike something.
I mean, you've got a great memory.
Unprovoked disclaiming that you don't like something.
I didn't realize, James, you had such a keen memory of my Pacific Rim feelings.
I do. I remember everything you say, Zach.
I'm looking at my letterbox rating in Pacific Rim.
Okay.
She went on to say her third film, Clifford. Have you guys seen Clifford?
Oh, that's the pretty recent one, isn't it?
There's an older one.
Probably the newest. Yeah, I don't. So the original one, the with Charles Grodin, is one of my least favorite movies of all time. But I bet she means the new one.
What's
like the super recent one?
What's this original one? Is it animated?
No.
The original. No. So when I talk about the one from like the early '90s that had Charles Grodin,
yeah,
and Martin Short, I think.
But what was it? A real dog or was it?
No, it had nothing to do with the dog.
But it's Clifford.
Well, it's called Clifford, but it had nothing to do with the dog Clifford. It was just about a boy named Clifford.
Oh, I assume she's talking about the dog movie, not some random 90s Clifford movie.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think that the Clifford I'm describing is one of my least favorite movies of all time.
Oh, I thought there was a 90s version of Clifford I missed.
No. James, I gave Pacific Rim 2 stars.
Okay.
Which means I didn't like it. And so
2 stars means you don't like something enough to proclaim you don't like it years later. Like just like literally you don't. So movies you don't like have 2 stars
or less. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because 2.5 for me is I'm neutral about it. So if it's above 2.5, I like it. If it's less than 2.5, I don't like it.
All right, that's generally how I do it too. Interesting. What do you like?
Yeah.
To the tune of 2 stars about Pacific Rim? Because it sounds like you don't like it at all. So
no,
I'm just curious where the 2 stars comes in.
No, I don't like it the least amount you cannot like something.
The least amount would be half star on Letterboxd.
No. What I'm saying, that would be the most I dislike.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So I don't hate this movie. It's just slightly below neutral.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Sure. So you still like some things about it in a neutral way.
Yeah. I would frame it as in, for the most part, I disliked the movie, but there were things I liked about it. It had cool animation.
I feel like that's exactly how I described your opinion of the movie from memory. Right? I said from my memory, it wasn't your favorite movie, but there were things that you liked about it.
Sure. And that would be a poor framing of it because you said that in reaction to me saying I didn't like it.
Yeah, because you do like some things about it.
Right. Just because you like some things about it doesn't mean you like something.
I guess. Was there more on this list? I don't remember.
Like I might like a green monster because I like the color green, but I dislike monsters. Okay. Anyways, there's more on this list.
Okay.
Let's see. We got Pacific Rim, Clifford, Red Riding Hood. The latest Robin Hood movie was pretty bad.
With Taron Egerton and Jamie Foxx, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I totally agree. In fact, I thought that movie was terrible.
Like 2 stars terrible or
worse?
Worse. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because terrible is not 2 stars. Terrible is probably more like 1 star territory.
All right.
Didn't like is more like 2 stars.
Then half star is like I hated it.
Half star is absolute, yeah.
Okay.
Half star is hate. Very few movies get a half star.
That's a strong rating to get. Yeah.
But let me look up this latest Robin Hood movie. Is that 2018, do we think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what I rated it if it counts as a hate. Ooh, 1.5 stars.
I have trouble when I'm rating something that I dislike that much. I have trouble going between a 1 and a 1.5. Like I don't see a difference. Like I agree with you. There's a 2. A 2 is like I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it. And then there's a half star of I hated that movie. But then I'm like 1.5. It seems like it's the same rating. Like really can't differentiate between those two.
Yeah. I can feel like degrees of like how much I like the movie, but how much you dislike the movie is tougher.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
To me, a 2 is worse than average. A 1.5 is a waste of time, and a half star is like the biggest waste of time I can imagine.
Well, what's a 1 then? How do you do between a 1 and 1.5? You skipped over 1. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Oh, sorry. 1 is a big waste of time.
What's 1.5?
Half is like no, just not interested. Didn't like anything about it.
Okay.
Half is no. And then the final movie, Matt Damon's classic Great Wall.
Also,
which I've
also not great.
I've only seen half of it. I couldn't finish it.
You missed the good part.
Did I?
No.
I thought you guys reviewed that.
I didn't.
Maybe James did with
Maybe
someone
I
else.
did with somebody
Okay.
else.
That might be it.
It's possible.
We also do last in top 10s a lot.
Or or I brought it up there.
And then final notes from my niece. Anything with Diane Keaton
Wow.
or Gerard Butler, unwatchable. And James Franco and Willem Dafoe are also on that list.
Diane Keaton and Willem Dafoe, unwatchable actors.
Yeah. I wonder, is there a movie that's had at least 3 of them in it? Diane Keaton, Gerard Butler, James Franco, and Willem Dafoe?
I have no clue.
Or any movie that's had 2 of them?
I can't think of any movie that has 2 of them. I'm sure they cross over somewhere.
Yeah.
2 of those people do, but I don't know where.
I bet you Gerard Butler has not been in a movie with any of those other people. Maybe with James Franco, but I doubt it.
Yeah. I also have a check-in.
James Franco and Willem Dafoe were in Spider-Man.
That's
Yeah.
true. There you
Those
go.
are bad movies.
Yeah.
There was one crossover there. I also have a crossover / check-in here. This is also an IRL fan encounter, I guess, if that's what we're talking about here. Would you consider your niece a fan at this point, Zach?
I doubt she's ever listened to the show.
She just knows you have opinions on movies.
Yeah.
Interesting. Does she know you have a podcast?
I have no idea.
Does she have ears?
No clue. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 2.
Perfect.
Symmetry, good.
I was in Cape Coral for my nephew's high school graduation. The last grandchild to graduate high school out of 5. Okay. So like all my nieces and nephews have now graduated high school, which makes me feel really young, by the way. So anyway, I was down there and a friend / acquaintance of my sister's, who's a friend of mine by extension, just because I've known her for quite a while, came up to me and said, "Hey, I saw a clip of you on Facebook where you were arguing about what a laugh is." Which is a clip we posted to the Facebook account.
Yeah.
And she's like, I didn't know you were on a podcast. And I was like, it's episode 530 of a weekly I was like, as long as you've known me, I've had that podcast. And you've had it no clue. And she was like, no, it was fun. It was interesting. I listened to the whole episode. And then she told me that I was wrong about The Lost City. Not about the romantic comedy part, about the whether it was funny or not part. She found it to be funny.
Oh, she thought it was funny.
Yeah. And not
Good. It was funny.
Not snortle funny or harump funny.
What about chortling?
Snortle?
Like legitimately laugh out loud funny.
Was she rolling on the floor?
Did not say whether she was rolling on the floor. Knowing her, doubt it.
Okay.
I agree. I laughed out loud during that movie.
You LOL'd?
Yeah.
Yep. So, anecdotally, The Lost City, evidently funny.
Certified funny.
People are saying it's a funny movie.
Yep.
Everyone is saying.
Let's put that on the poster. Speaking of funny movies, we're going to talk about one this week. It's Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers. But before we jump into that, we need to do a little bit of housekeeping. Don't forget there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. Find the podcast there, and you can watch while you listen. You could also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinereelists. Throw us a bone on a monthly basis and get extra after show content as well as other Cinerealist swag. You could leave us an Apple podcast review or send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Not to be too so I was watching Survivor the other day, and Jeff Probst has this catchphrase, I guess, for lack of a better term, where when he calls all the survivors in to run a challenge, he goes, "Come on in, guys," right? And then on a recent episode of Survivor, he said it, and then he asked all the survivors whether he should drop the term guys, because it's not all guys. It's men, women, people who don't identify as either of those things. Should we change our email address? Should we follow the lead of Jeff Probst of Survivor fame?
But aren't we all guys?
We're all guys.
We're all guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can keep the email, "Hey guys,"
Yeah.
but we probably shouldn't refer to the listening audience as guys.
No.
Unless we have a strong belief that only men listen to the show.
I mean, I know for a fact it's not only men.
Yes.
Okay.
I know of a couple female listeners.
Okay, so it's okay for us to keep
So
"Hey
James
guys."
is hashtag not all men.
It's okay to keep the email "Hey guys" because we are guys.
Yeah.
But when referring to the audience, we should no longer use guys.
Just y'all.
I mean, you guys never asked me if I felt comfortable with "Hey guys." You just kind of made assumptions. So I feel a little, left out on that conversation. But
Right.
I moved on.
Okay.
There's a lot we don't consult you on, Kyle.
I know. I'm sure you have your own secret Discord channels.
Yeah.
But there's hosts,
well,
and then there's real hosts. So just
that's because I get challenged whenever I post to the general by you.
That's because
You're like, why didn't you make that private?
or why do you post something for someone specific in the general? That just makes everyone feel left out.
For the benefit of everyone.
No, it's exclusion through inclusion.
Yep.
Not a thing. Not a thing.
Bottom line, email us, heyguys@cinereelists.com. We will read and discuss it on the podcast. Let's get into this week's main topic of this episode. It's the streaming movie Chip and Dale: Rescue Rangers, streaming only on Disney Plus. We're going to get into it right after this clip.
I get to decide who's a star and who gets thrown in the trash. And now you two come poking around where you don't belong, asking questions about your missing friend, and I can't have that. So how's this for a break? I'm thinking it's time for a Chip and Dale reboot. Jimmy?
You come with me.
Yep, we're dead.
No! Just grab him already!
That was Chip and Dale: Rescue Rangers, a 2022 American live action / animated action adventure comedy movie directed by Akiva Schaffer, based on the Disney television animated show Rescue Rangers. Was the original one called Rescue Rangers?
No, it's called
Chip and Dale
Rescue
Rescue
Rangers.
Rangers.
All right. Well, Wikipedia has
Was
that
it
wrong.
Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers or Chip and Dale: Rescue Rangers for the cartoon?
Chip and Dale: Rescue
Okay.
Rangers.
Yep. This movie stars the voices of John Mulaney, Andy Samberg, Will Arnett, Eric Bana, Keegan-Michael Key, Seth Rogen, J.K. Simmons, and Kiki Lane, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Chip and Dale: Rescue Rangers is 30 years after their popular television show ended, Chipmunks Chip and Dale live very different lives. When a cast member from the original series mysteriously disappears, the pair must reunite to save their friend. What did you guys think of Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers?
First off, I really hope someone's listening and takes your saying of Chip and Dale and remixes it into a beat. Because, like, I feel like you could just loop that, like, Chip and Dale, Chip and Dale, and then build it from there, and it'll just be all based on you. So, Zach, I felt like you were maybe the most connected to this property. You obviously had strong opinions on the trailer. Yeah. Do you want to go first or last?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, so this movie was one of my most anticipated movies when we made the list in 2011.
In 2011?
No, sorry, 2021.
Oh, okay.
This has been 11 years of the making. Like, it's finally here.
When I found out that they were making Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers into a film, and it was the Lonely Island guys that were doing it, it was instantly something that I was very, very looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So spoiler alert to my list later on, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was one of my all-time favorite cartoons as a kid. I was super into Chip and Dale. I've seen all the episodes multiple times, I'm sure. And then the Lonely Island guys, I have been a fan of for a very long time, since the early 2000s. And so this is directed by Akiva Schaffer. It's starring Andy Samberg. All of that sounds awesome. Like Pop Star, the movie that they did before, I thought was so funny. I just cracked up through that whole movie. So the idea of a Rescue Rangers movie made by these guys, I was just so on board. On top of that, there is a Robin Hood reference in this film, which was super exciting for me, a Disney's Robin Hood reference. There's actually two that I caught. I'm sure there are possibly others, but I saw two.
Oh, I don't know if I caught any Robin Hood.
I don't think I did either.
At one point, they show a room that has a bunch of like things that they stole from different characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's where like the mustache is and that kind of thing. And there's Robin Hood's hat with an arrow through it.
Okay.
And then at the end of the film, there's Toby the turtle. But he's like super bulked up. He's like super strong Toby.
Was that DJ Snake supposed to be Sir Hiss?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Certainly, I didn't get any Sir Hiss vibes at all from DJ Snake.
I wasn't getting it, though. I thought his outfit was kind of Sir Hissy. Like, he had like.
I'd have to relook at it. Okay. I could have missed it,
but it didn't sound like him. So
yeah, it didn't give me any Sir Hiss vibes. But I'll check it out again.
Cool.
It reminded me more of the snake from Jungle Book.
Oh, that's probably yeah. Wasn't that voiced by Scarlett Johansson, though, in Jungle Book?
In the live-action remake.
Yeah, the Disney film, cartoon.
Yeah.
But in the old cartoon, no. It wasn't even born.
They both have hypnotizing powers, though.
What's the same character? No, I see. Oh, Sir Hiss and the snake, yeah. Well, yeah, because snakes are terrible, evil creatures, obviously. Right. They'll hypnotize you and tempt you.
Exactly. So I was primed to be very excited about this film. Then when I found out more, when I found out that John Mulaney was the voice of Chip, that really disappointed me, because I think his voice is terrible for Chip. I found it grating. My wife and I watched this movie together, and then within like 10 minutes, she's like, "Who's the voice of Chip? His voice is awful." And I was glad that she came up with that too.
Like, as in John Mulaney's voice in general is awful, or his voice for that character was awful?
As Chip.
Okay. Weren't they squeaky in the cartoon?
Yes.
Like Alvin and
they
Chipmunks?
were squeaking in the cartoon. Yeah. Before the movie, my wife and I watched an episode of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers just to kind of get in the mood. And the episode was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And then we started the movie, and I have to be honest, I was incredibly disappointed the entire time. I did not find this movie funny. I think it's a huge missed opportunity as far as what I wanted to see. It was not at all what I wanted to see. I think there was a graphic at the very end of the film with Chip and Dale and like the Tailspin characters and the Darkwing Duck characters and the Adventures of gummy bears characters all in this one poster in their like normal animation style. And I think I would have loved so much. This would have been one of my favorite movies of all time if it was just this massive crossover film with all of these 80s and 90s cartoon characters that we love. And they're all themselves just having this amazing crossover adventure 20 years later. Maybe 30 years, I don't know.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. We're a little older than that.
That's not what this movie was. What this movie was like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is fine. But like the poorly animated version of Who Framed Roger Rabbit that's more sad and like depressing and dark than it is fun or funny. Like there was so little lightness or fun in this film. It was a lot of like, you know, the equivalent of cartoon alcoholics, you know, like people that are just like stuck in the past, lonely, sad, down on their luck, you know, not in good relationship with people they're supposed to care about, in trouble. And it's just like everyone's in these sad situations and no one's having a good time or enjoying themselves. And the ones that are like the foils. I don't know. This movie was not at all what I wanted. And I only laughed once. When I did laugh, I know I'm talking a lot. When I did laugh, I probably laughed for a good minute. At one point, Chip called Dale Rubber Dubber Dale. And I just thought that was so funny. And I couldn't stop laughing after he said Rubber Dubber Dale. But apart from that, no, I apologize. He called him Rubber Dubber Dale in the episode that we watched before the movie.
Yeah.
So I didn't laugh at all during this film.
So the TV show made you laugh.
In the episode of the cartoon, he called him Rubber Dubber Dale, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed. In the movie, I didn't laugh at anything. And so, yeah, so this movie was a huge miss for me. Hopefully you guys found things to really love about it and you could enjoy the experience. But for me, this was just a big miss.
Do you feel like now that you know what it is and what it isn't, that maybe a year or two down the line you could revisit it and find an appreciation for what it is versus what your expectation was?
Okay, so it is certainly possible that, you know, let's say I let go of the fact of like what could have been, you know, it could have been this like cool crossover in character kind of a thing, right? So instead, like, okay, let me get on board for a Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, step behind the curtain kind of adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly I would like the film more, except I feel like I was, you know, what I'm talking about, what I wanted is more what I realized I wanted at the end of the movie when I saw that image of all those characters. I knew marketing wise the entire time leading up to this film what it was, that it was this Who Framed Roger Rabbit behind the scenes kind of thing. So I think while I was watching it, I was disappointed, not because of what I wanted to be something different, but because of what I was being presented with. I didn't realize what I actually wanted until the end, and I saw that graphic and I'd be like, this would have been what would have made me happy. Mm-hmm. So I suspect if I were to watch this again in a couple of years, I think I'll have the exact same reaction, that these characters are just sad and lonely and bitter. And I didn't find it fun. I didn't find it funny. And then there's so many references to obscure cartoons and stuff like that. But for the most part, they're underused. I mean, like, there's some Lumiere stuff that, like, where they play off of, like, what is interesting about him, you know? But for most of the characters, it's just a glimpse and that's it. They're not integral to anything. They don't mean anything. Whereas, like, take a totally different movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? That movie has some super random stuff in there. Like, things that you think are just a one-off joke. But that, like, everything gets wrapped into the end. Everything gets wrapped up, serves a purpose, right? Like, if a hot dog shows up at the beginning, no matter how random it is, it becomes part of a, like, catharsis at the end. And I don't know, that I thought was like a really cool way to do it, rather than just in the background for a split second, you see a blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, those are my quick thoughts. Kyle, what'd you think of the show?
I am on the same page with you. I did not like this movie. I watched Rescue Rangers also as a kid growing up. I don't think I was as in love with it as you are, but it was still something that I enjoyed. And this movie, you keep referring to Roger Rabbit, and it's very much that same case where, like, we are looking at the characters. Chip and Dale are real creatures in this world. They're real actors, and like that was their job, and they moved on from it. And every cartoon character and whatnot is real and lives in this world, much like Roger Rabbit, which is fine. But it doesn't have any fun with that. Like, this movie is trying so hard to not be a reboot that it's making jokes about like other properties have rebooted and what they've done and haven't done, and then we'll go ahead and do it anyway. And I don't know, this movie is so inward looking and it's trying to be so clever that just comes across as boring and kind of strange. Whereas the jokes are not funny. The meta commentary is fine, but it's nothing new. Like we've seen other people make movies before about how hard it is to adapt something or to reboot something or to update something. Like, this is not the first time that joke's been done, and they didn't do anything new with it. At one point, there's a Men's Warehouse joke where like a character says like, "You're gonna love the way I look, I guarantee it," which I'm not sure who that joke is for. Like, is that supposed to be for me or for my son? He's not gonna get it. And then it does the thing where it explains the joke, where a character goes, "Oh wow, Men's Warehouse, can't believe you made that reference." And like, this movie did that multiple times. It would make a joke and then explain the joke or point the joke out to the audience. Like, just in case you missed it, that was the joke, and here's why it's funny. And that, I mean, for me, that just makes it even less funny. And that really had me wondering, who is this movie for? Like, I watched it with my son, and he liked it because there was cartoon characters and silly things, and like, I think visually he was interested in it. But then he was also like, plot wise, he was like, "What's bootlegging?" And he's trying to like, I'm trying to explain all these concepts of this plot, which I think kids do not understand whatsoever.
There's a whole section at the end that like is legit like horror film tropes where this one character like is constantly chasing another character and like that character can't escape them and they're just like popping up everywhere kind of a thing. And it's straight out of a horror film. And I'm like, well, little kids might be scared of this like section, like I it's weird for a PG movie to have that section.
Yeah.
I thought.
I think I was falling asleep during that section. Like, I was forcing myself to stay awake for this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this did not have any of the fun or adventure of the original cartoon. Like, in the original cartoon, every episode they'd have to go on some adventure to save something or fix something. They'd have to build contraptions. Like, this movie had Gadget in it briefly with a tiny contraption, but that was it. So there wasn't any of like that team dynamic. There wasn't the contraptions, the fun, the adventure that I expect from a Rescue Rangers property. I don't know. It seemed like, for me, Lonely Island was probably given the job from Disney, like, "Hey, we've got Rescue Rangers. We need to reboot it, update it. What do you want to do?" And they probably were like, "Well, I don't want to just do a normal cartoon. So let's make something meta and make a commentary on reboots." And it just fell flat for me. James, what do you think?
I mean, this is not a movie that I'm going to make an impassioned defense of. That's for sure. But I probably liked it more than you guys did, I would assume. Sounds like you guys didn't like it very much at all.
No.
But I had a good time watching the movie. I mean, I thought it was, I laughed out loud a couple times. Mostly visual gags, but the Men's Warehouse joke absolutely did get me. That's for sure. And I thought explaining the joke, whether it was necessary for the audience or not, was a part of the joke.
It's very much an Andy Samberg type of humor.
Yeah.
I was fine with that.
I mean, that's something that I've seen him do in other places. I've seen the Lonely Island do that in other places where they like over explain something intentionally.
But they do that when the joke is funny, though. I mean, so it's one thing if the joke is funny and then they over-explain why it's funny because they get that ridiculous level. But when the joke is like a stupid catchphrase from a decade ago.
No, I think if they had just said the catchphrase and moved on, I don't even think I would have laughed at it. I wouldn't have caught it. But the moment they reference, hey, that's the Men's Warehouse, then I laughed. Because I was like, that was the Men's Warehouse thing. You know, they somehow fit the Men's Warehouse slogan into the script somehow.
It's not that hard to do.
It's not that hard to do. But I'm just saying.
I'm not blown away by the writing. Wow, I can't believe they did that.
Of all the slogans to jam into this kids movie on Disney Plus, that it would be that one is the humor, I think, as far as from my perspective anyway. Like I said, I'm not going to die on this hill for sure as to whether you thought the Men's Warehouse joke was funny. But I do agree. Like, I watched a lot of Chippendale's Rescue Rangers when I was a kid, and this is not the tone of that show. I would say, like, I don't remember Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers being a particularly dark show. By dark, I don't even mean content. I just mean visuals. It's it's not Scooby-Doo where half of it or 90% of it takes place at night. I don't even remember any episodes taking place at night. I'm sure they did, but my memory of the show is that it was just always outside in sunlight or in a well-lit house or wherever in a building. Anyway, just not a dark show visually. Certainly not a dark show from a content perspective. And this one occasionally got a little dark in its humor, but really, I thought it kept it kind of light compared to what I know Lonely Island can go to, right? It's definitely their kids movie, their version of a kids movie. It's meta like a lot of their stuff is. It's pretty much exactly what I imagined they would make, given the chance, with a property that maybe the three people on this call have a tight association with, but that the vast majority of people probably don't have as tight an association. In fact, if it wasn't them wanting to make this, there probably would be no Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers thing ever on Disney Plus. It would just be the old shows.
Agreed.
To be accessed, right? There's probably not enough interest for them to make even a new thing that's Chip and Dale.
This was the only bite of that apple.
For sure. And if they had come to them and said, we're going to make a straight sequel to the cartoon, we're going to make it look like the cartoon, have the same kinds of scripts, it's just going to be an hour and a half long, they would have, I imagine Disney Plus executives would have said, well, what do we need you for to do that? We'll just throw the series into a script blender and pop out whatever, happens to come out of the machine, which is kind of how they wrote scripts back then for these kids' animated TV shows. So I guess I'm not fully understanding why you would assume any different, other than maybe, so Zach specifically, knowing that you knew what this was going to be.
Yeah. I didn't.
Was it just that that
this was what I thought it was going to be? I think as I learned more.
But what you were hoping was it was that. Not that you were hoping it was that. Knowing that it was that, you were hoping it would be funny, and because it wasn't funny, you now would rather it be something else.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I think that if you're going to take something that for instance, I loved. Mm-hmm. And significantly change what it's going to be about, right? Mm-hmm. So like we're going to use these things, but we're going to tell a very different type of story. Mm-hmm. Then make something great. Mm-hmm. Like at least in my estimation, to make that change worth it, right? Like because I'd be happy with just give me a straight dose of what I like. You know what I mean? So if you're going to change everything. Mm-hmm. Like make it worthwhile to make that big of a change. And it's just, I didn't find this movie funny. And I find Lonely Island funny. I know that they can get dark. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. There was even like the Roger Rabbit of it, mm-hmm. Like if you compare this to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that movie felt like humans and cartoons embodied the same world. Like it felt like they were interacting and touching and stuff like this. In this movie, you'd have the like deputy detective talking to the Chip and Dale characters, and it just felt odd. Like it just they did not feel like they inhabited the same world. It felt very clunky, showing real world and cartoon stuff together. It was like night and day difference in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're very different movies with similar presentations, obviously.
No,
surface presentations.
But I'm talking about the technical aspect of it. Like it just visually didn't look as good as something that's 30 years old.
Right. Well, they don't have people interacting with cartoons much in this movie, whereas the whole movie of Who Framed Roger Rabbit is that. I mean, there's lots of environments that are presented as real, but when you're talking about actual people interacting with animated objects, it doesn't really happen much in this movie comparatively to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's also a world where there isn't a distinction between cartoon and people. You know what I mean? It's not like there was one main street where the Toons hung out, but it's not like there was an entire city and the Toons live there and the real people live here.
Yeah, like a Roger Rabbit.
Like in a Roger Rabbit. Yeah. Or like Toons just kind of exist in the world like people do in Chip and Dale. Whereas in Roger Rabbit, they're second-class citizens who can only do one thing, entertain people type of thing. And so there's less focus on the idea that humans and cartoons are existing. It's just an accepted thing in Chip and Dale, right?
I'm not talking about thematically. I'm just talking straight visually.
Yeah,
sure.
I hear what Zach. I hear what you're saying is that it didn't, even though it's fine, right? Even though it's different about how the humans in the cartoons exist in this world, when they were literally on screen together, it didn't feel like they were together on screen. Like it felt like when that detective was there, it looked like she was looking through like a house of a blue screen or something like that.
Yeah,
like I didn't get that interaction of it, right? And it was always people were often talking to cartoons like at a distance, like just kind of like look at the dot right there. Whereas you watch Roger Rabbit and like they're grabbing Roger Rabbit and he's running around them and like pulling their hats down and like, maybe with Roger Rabbit, part of the fun was to show, look how we can make it look like a cartoon interacts with the human. Whereas now, 30 years later, they don't need to prove that with Chip and Dale. But just because they don't need to prove it doesn't mean that it's not fun to do in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you guys need to watch some Alvin and the Chipmunks movies because this is pretty much par for the course when it comes to mixing people with animated characters these days. I would say.
I see.
I mean, this is not out of the bounds of what most Hollywood movies that have these elements, are doing these days.
I have not seen the Alvin Chipmunks movies, but I find it ironic you say that because this movie kept trying to make a point of how they're not Alvin and the Chipmunks. And like even pointing to, oh, look, now they're rapping, even though they do this. And like, of course they're doing that. So the fact that this movie's trying to not be Alvin and the Chipmunks, but then is using the same lazy style of like this pop a human in the background, talk to that big giant head, and then go and have the CG characters on their adventure is interesting to me. That maybe
Can I say some positives about the movie so I'm not just totally negative about it?
No.
Loved the use of music in this film. I thought like that the score was super good. Like they would weave in like Chip and Dale themes throughout the film, and it was done very well.
Sure. Yeah, I liked that. I liked all the needle drops. I liked.
I loved the 3D animation of Dale. I thought that was great.
The 3D animation of what?
Dale.
Oh, of Dale himself. Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish they had just updated the whole crew to 3D.
Yeah, the idea of like the 3D surgery, they didn't really do much with that. I mean, it's just something. It's like it was a thing to make Dale look different, but it wasn't really anything else that happened in the movie. It wasn't really a part.
Yeah,
of it.
and it's kind of a one joke that then turns into kind of a distraction later on, where you're just kind of like, why do they still look different? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I remember why. It's just like, what's the point of this?
Yeah,
for one joke. I don't know. None of that hurt the movie for me though. I enjoyed it. It's definitely not going to be on my top 20 or probably a movie I ever need to see again for sure. But I'm not upset that it exists or
I'm not upset that it exists.
It was
but
funnier than
I
Lost
didn't
City.
like
That's
it.
for sure. I mean, the stuff that I found the most funny were things that I absolutely did not know were in the movie, and so that's why we probably shouldn't even talk about them. But there were definitely one-offs or references here and there that made me laugh for sure and were unexpected. And most of it are like meta jokes that have nothing to do with Chip and Dale as a property that existed in the 80s. But they crammed them into this movie that was very, referential to cartoons and video games and pop culture in general over the course of it. You were asking who is this movie made for? I think it's made so that kids can enjoy it on some level, enjoy the mayhem and the animation and the adventureness of it. But it's definitely made for
Our
people.
age, I feel.
Yeah, it's made for people our age or younger. I mean, one of the best jokes in the movie that I'm not going to talk about references a video game character that certainly bleeds into our age group, but also my son's generation absolutely knows about that video game character and what that video game character went through. And stuff like that I think is definitely not made for a 7-year-old, but it's made for adults on some level.
The joke you're talking about, I think I know, and my son has talked about the teeth a lot
at the convention. So it even bled into his, generation.
Yeah. So he liked, but he just liked the weirdness of the teeth shots. He thought that was funny.
I think that character specifically, and like him being in a movie like this, that is what I was expecting from this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like from The Lonely Island, I was like, we're gonna get a lot of stuff like this, and that's what I was prepared for, I think. And so I was fine with those kind of things. I thought it's cool that they can so quickly reference a cultural phenomenon and like use it like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But maybe because that character was actually seemed to be happy. It's just like Dale was so bitter and unhappy the whole movie. Or Chip was. And Dale, was, I don't know, in his own little world. You got Monterey Jack is like strung up on cheese.
A drug addict, yeah. In this movie.
For sure.
Owing people money.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest complaint would probably be that I wish they had a better balance of the old and the new. And I wish that we had more Gadget and Zipper in the movie and, that type of stuff. It would have been cooler if there was a little more lightness to the movie visually and content wise. But I understand why it was made the way it was made. And for the product that was made, I laughed.
Yeah.
So, but it's never going to beat Popstar in my mind.
No, that movie was funny.
But Popstar takes what is, it's not exactly the same formula, but pretty close to the same formula.
What do you mean?
I mean, it takes something that isn't necessarily dark and makes it pretty dark, but satirizes every element of it. And
what Popstar did was it took something that's real, right? Or like that is a cultural thing. And instead of subverting it and making it something different, right? So it's not telling the behind the scenes of a boy band, but making it like a Western. What it's doing is taking the thing and then turning it up to 12, like oversaturating it, right? It's making it more of the thing than the thing ever was. Whereas like this movie, I guess I would have loved that, right? If it made it more Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers than Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers ever was, and like went extreme with like all of the idiosyncrasies of that property. And instead, they just made it something else.
And they kind of did that at times. Like they had a few moments where they'd have the group laugh at the end of the episode. And then the laugh would go on for 10, 15 seconds.
And I was fine with that.
And I thought that was a clever gag of like, how long do these... Because always in those cartoons, they all laugh and then like cuts to credits. So then just have them actually laughing for like that long. I thought it was actually
Yeah.
clever, and right, and that's sort of what you're talking about, taking what the show does and cranking it up.
Yeah. And like, Zipper, I thought was funny. I liked Zipper and Gadget and,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. At some point, I'm not sure I need to see it again, but I'd love to see just like a rundown of all the references, because I guarantee there's like there's some pretty
obscure,
deep dives into classic animation that I don't know much about.
I would say a good 70% of the characters I saw, I had no idea who they were.
Yes,
but you recognize that like someone has some connection to them.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the same way. Like, there are so many of these random characters we would walk across, and then Galen would be like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "I have no idea who that character is." Like, it was maybe too deep. The fact that, like, or too obscure, some of the references they were making.
Too obscure for you, but if there's like a 60-year-old watching, maybe those are the ones they recognize.
Yeah, but I'm going back to Roger Rabbit. Like, Roger Rabbit has their references, but they also just give you Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse on screen together for like 60 seconds, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to do a deep reference. The fact that these have these two characters, you would never find any other time where Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse would talk to each other, and Roger Rabbit gives you that. And instead, this one's just giving you like, here's some obscure cartoon your grandmother might recognize.
There was a lot of like, here's a character in the background, which if you like that character is super exciting to see, right? Like, I was excited to see Toby in this one shot. But there's also something like when if you get to see Darkwing Duck talk to you, it'd be cool. Those kind of things are awesome too, right? And again, you just don't get many bites of that apple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say my wife also really didn't like this movie. And she, about half an hour in, I hadn't made any like cynical comments or anything. I was silent watching it. And halfway in, she's like, "I'm really not liking this. What are you thinking?" So, but James, can you weigh in on John Mulaney in this film? Pro, fine, or do you feel like he was not the right cast for this?
I mean, I would have preferred if both of them had chipmunk voices, to be honest. I didn't even feel it necessary that they go to normal voices. I wasn't Khan compared to Andy Samberg, but yeah, I guess it was a non-issue for me overall.
Gotcha.
I don't really like John Mulaney's stand-up, but his voice never bothered me.
In the trailer, his voice bothered me. As this movie went on, I didn't mind it as much. I think I adjusted to the fact that they weren't squeaky chipmunks. So
yeah,
it was not a sticking point for me.
I kind of feel like you could have cut all the humans out of this movie. Like, literally just it's a movie movie with a bunch of cartoons in it that live in the real world, but there's no humans that live in this real world. I think it would have been pretty close to the same movie if you had done that.
I want to make one final comment real quick. So I have an arcade machine in my house, and it has like tons of old retro games on it, like Nintendo and arcade and Sega, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, my daughter has recently started wanting to play it a lot. So me and her play the arcade machine a ton. And her current favorite game is Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers on Nintendo.
That's like a co-op game. Like, can't you like jump on each other's heads and things like that?
You can, play with each other. Chip and Dale play with each other. And she tries to stay away from the big guy, bad guys. And so we have a lot of fun playing Chip and Dale together. So she definitely wanted to see this movie.
And she's going to have to wait.
She's going to have to wait. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Until I can explain to her Men's Warehouse. And then
sure.
And loan sharking. That's important.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers? Sounds good. Let's letterbox this one. I gave it a 3.
Nice.
I gave it 2 stars.
1 star.
1 star. Ouch.
Wow.
So the full range, a 1, a 2, and a 3.
The only options we have.
For Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Let's get into this week's list. It is our top 10 favorite kids cartoon TV shows. So in looking at my list, I know for sure that, it's slanted to when I was watching cartoons. So
Oh yeah,
certainly
for sure.
there have been a lot of kids cartoon TV shows over the decades from when I was watching to today that are completely left out because I didn't watch those cartoons. So if you're younger, you have to take this list with that grain of salt. I don't know if you guys are a little younger than me, but I'm assuming there will be crossover here and there. But I'm curious to see if there's some on your list that I either wasn't aware of or never watched or those types of things. But yeah, so not really a movie list this week, but movie related or related to the movie we talked about.
Yeah.
Let's start with my number 10 because I don't have much to say about it, but this is the Super Mario Brothers Super Show!
Loved that show.
Mhm.
So good.
Yeah, that's fun.
I like
So
this show
good.
too. It was one of the first that I remember that were based on a video game from that time period, and actually kind of resembled the video game too. And don't remember much about any of the plots in the movie. I think most of them just centered around like Peach and stuff like that. So yeah, I could not recall any specifics about the show other than it actually looked like the video game, and that was kind of rare sometimes.
Do you remember the framing of they'd have live action Mario and Luigi?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
introducing the cartoons,
Yeah.
basically.
Absolutely.
So good.
I
And
remember
it
that.
was
so
like
good.
2 improv actors just riffing. I don't think they ever had scripts. They were like, all right, Mario, Luigi, you're making pizza. You got 3 minutes to kill. Gail and I were watching those about a year ago, and like they were so out there and ridiculous. But
Yeah.
it's fun to see a kid show where there's like, do what you want and then cut to a cartoon.
Yep. For sure. And yeah, my number 10.
James, did you get new headphones?
No, same one.
Nice.
Why?
Those are good headphones.
They are good headphones.
I'll go next. I had a really hard time with this. I do have a very strong top 20. I'll only do my top 10, but maybe I can run off my list of my 11 through 20 when we're done. And again, just like James, I mean, this list is heavily era based, right? Like when you're watching cartoons on TV. So if you're my age, you probably love these cartoons too. And if not, you might not have even heard of these cartoons.
Hey, I'm your age.
I'm sure we're going to have ones that are similar.
Man, what if we went 10 through 1 bingo?
We won't.
I
We
know,
won't.
but that'd be pretty
We
great.
won't. That'd be great. My number 10 is Animaniacs.
Oh,
Love Animaniacs. They're the
Kyle's
Warner
changing his
Brothers
list right
yeah, I
now.
totally forgot about Animaniacs.
You forgot about the Animaniacs?
Oh
Yakko,
my-
Wacko, and Dot.
my
They're the Warner
goodness.
Brothers and the Warner sister. So I liked this better than Tiny Toon Adventures, which was another show I loved.
Oh, Tiny Toons.
Yeah, Tiny Toon Adventures was great. This was a similar vibe, except it just was a little bit wackier. Their sensibility was a little bit out of the box. And they had really great things, like really great music. Like whoever wrote the music for that show was awesome because they would have, Yakko names all the countries of the world, or like all of these different goofy songs that were so memorable. I learned the nations of the world. I still know it, that song, or at least part of it. Pinky and the Brain came from Animaniacs. I still quote it sometimes. Like there's this one character that like it is from the Bizarro world, and once he said goodbye to someone, he says it's been surreal, and it like half sounds like surreal and half sounds like so real. And I quote that sometimes just because it stood out to me. So there's a lot about the Animaniacs that it was way better than it should have been for like just a random kids show, right? Like the writers actually cared about what they were writing, and it showed, and I liked it a lot.
Nice.
Well, I'm gonna have to remake my entire list now. Okay. No, I'm not changing my list. I'm just gonna quickly add on to your Animaniacs because if I was thinking this better through, I would have added that one. Yeah,
How high would it have made? Do you think top 5, top 10?
it would have made top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you talk about the music. Every episode, they had a 35-piece orchestra record the music, and it had like this Looney Tunes feel to it, where you felt like you were
Mhm.
watching like this old cartoon with this zany antics. And then when I was a middle school band teacher, like on the day where I'm like, I'm just not feeling it today, I can't teach, I would put on Animaniacs for the kids. And they loved Animaniacs. And
Yeah.
occasionally there were some dated jokes in there, but overall, they found it very funny. So
Typical like cool guy band teacher, you know what I mean?
I was the cool guy band teacher, letting them watch cartoons because I didn't feel like teaching that day. And it's too hard to get a sub. So
What's your number 10?
My number 10 is The World of David the Gnome. This was I think it was a Dutch cartoon that was then translated into English. It's a cartoon about these world of gnomes, which look like garden gnomes with like the pointy hats and the beards. And in the world, they can talk to animals. They're fighting trolls. They're helping nature stay peaceful. And it was just a super pleasant show. I remember watching as a kid and being very excited for, mostly because every episode, David and his gnome friends went on these little adventures and, talked to the animals and just had fun. And I just really enjoyed that show. I was reading about it. Or I watched the opening intros to all these today because they're fun. Like, one of the great things about cartoons, at least back when we were kids, is they all had great theme songs to them.
Great theme songs.
And yeah, by the way, my entire list starts in like the early 80s and ends in the mid 90s. It's like that total cartoon watching age for me. And at the beginning of David and the Gnome, there's a title card that says brought to you by Bob and Harvey Weinstein. Because apparently Miramax helped distribute this way back in the day.
Oops.
Yeah, like, ooh, that's unfortunate.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you did pick kind of the art house 80s cartoon there, so.
It was fairly art house, I would say. It had not a normal kids show sensibility. It was so like gentle.
Yeah, but I think that's what I liked about it. I mean, not all my picks are gentle here, but the fact that it was just a kind of a chill cartoon.
Do you remember how that show ended, like the final episode?
Well, I don't, but I was reading. Did he turn to a tree? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's like really heartfelt. They like say goodbye to all their friends, and then him and his wife turn into a tree.
Yeah, apparently in their world, when the gnome turns 400 years old, they become a tree, and that's why they're so connected to nature. And David is 399 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't remember that, but thank you, Wikipedia, for reminding me.
My number 9 is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the original cartoon, which,
Classic.
like I said, is a show that I enjoyed a lot as a kid. I watched it a bunch. I liked Chip and Dale cartoons in general, like the old Chip and Dale cartoons.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, so I remember the TV show premiering and watching it as often as I could. And I also loved the A-Team, and Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers had a very A-Team formula to it, for sure, where somebody has an issue, they call in the Rescue Rangers create some kind of thing, some kind of gadget or something like that, some kind of ship, bus, whatever it is, and that helps them rescue the person or whatever the issue was. And the combination of those two really worked for me as a kid, and that's why it's my number 9.
Any memorable episodes that you think of?
Not in specific.
Do you remember the soda cult?
No.
No.
There was this cult of mice, this underground cult of mice that worshipped soda.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would like take showers in soda and stuff like that. It was so weird. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was great. My number 9, Darkwing Duck. I love Darkwing Duck so much. I was routinely late for school because Darkwing Duck came on at 8 a.m. and I would just stay and watch an episode and then be like 10 minutes late for school. Because I would try to push it and watch as much Darkwing Duck as I could. So I was often late for school for like 3 years in middle school. Yeah, Darkwing Duck is super fun. He's like a crime fighting alliteration using, like noir type of detective. with like kind of like Batman villain kind of characters. And he had a daughter. And it was really funny. It was really great. So big fan of that. Kyle has a anecdote about Darkwing Duck.
I learned this, yeah. So you remember in the movie, Dale went on to go do the Double O Dale show that kind of sunk the whole Chippendales.
Mm-hmm.
So that's inspired by Double O Duck, which was eventually what became Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck started as a James Bond parody, and then for whatever reason they shifted more towards a superhero Batman style.
Interesting.
I think that would have been clever too. Like, what if they had Darkwing Duck and then the original Double O Duck and like the same, and then like they could have had so much more fun with this movie.
Would have saved the movie.
It would not have saved the movie, but I don't know. They could have just, like if you have this whole library and you have all these ideas, instead of like saying, well, we'll just take Double O Duck and make it our own Double O Dale and not do anything with it. Like, have Darkwing Duck and Double O Duck and have them talk, and I don't know, just that's why they're writers. They can do this better, but apparently not. So they had all these opportunities to have all these characters have these fun interactions, and instead it's just like, here's some random guy walking by while Chip is depressed about being an insurance salesman.
I don't even remember the random guy walking by.
No, that's the point. Like 70% we didn't recognize. It's just random like cameos of
characters.
Yeah, exactly. Random cartoon guy walking by. But let's talk about a cartoon that I do like. My number 9 is The Real Ghostbusters. And this is the spin-off of the Ghostbusters movie of the same name, the cartoon version. Now, this was my actual first introduction to the Ghostbusters franchise, was through the cartoon. So I learned all about Slimer, Ecto-1, their cool base. I had a bunch of the toys as a kid. And then the show itself was just super fun. It had kind of that Ghostbusters style comedy. Not Harold Ramis, who directed Ghostbusters? Help me out.
It wasn't Harold Ramis?
It was Harold Ramis.
It was Harold Ramis.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my apologies. Yeah. It had that Harold Ramis style comedy. So it was like my first introduction to that. Whoever was playing Venkman was trying to do their best Bill Murray impression. And it was also just a really fun show where each week they got to battle some strange looking ghost with their proton packs. And I remember playing Ghostbusters all the time, having the toys. I had a friend who had the firehouse and had the pole where the guy could spin down, which was super cool. I had the Ecto-1 toy. A lot of these shows sold toys, coincidentally, or that was the purpose of these shows. But Ghostbusters, or The Real Ghostbusters, and eventually it was called Slimer, The Real Ghostbusters, when they had more of him, was a favorite of mine.
Evidently, Dave Coulier played Peter Venkman for 4 seasons of The Real Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Huh. Uncle Jesse? Not Uncle Jesse.
No, Uncle the other uncle.
Well, what's his name? Joey. Uncle Joey.
Right.
Do you guys know the story between Dave Coulier and Alanis Morissette?
Yes. I mean, you ought to know.
She wrote a whole song about it.
Yeah, you ought to know is about Dave Coulier.
Exactly.
I'm not sure she's fully confirmed that.
I think she's mostly confirmed it, and he's mostly confirmed. I think it'd be hard to argue against at this point.
Sure.
With the amount of stuff out there.
I'm just not sure she's put the official stamp of approval on that.
I don't think she has to.
Yeah, I don't think she had. I agree with James. She hasn't put the official stamp on there.
Mm-hmm.
But
she's also not making suggestions of who else it could be.
It's I think like you can make a very strong case from things she said, he said, and blah blah blah. But yeah.
I like this show as well, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna make my list, but I do enjoy this one.
Yeah.
Or did. I'm not sure I would enjoy any of these if I were to watch them again. To be honest.
Yeah, these are definitely like 5 to 12-year-old Kyle is making this list.
Right.
Some of these I have not. I mean, I watched the intros to all of these, but I haven't I watched episodes of these in a long time, and I'm sure some of them would not hold up. But
I'm pretty sure I could watch like an hour of them and be like, "Yep, that was what it was like," and move on and be perfectly fine. I would not need to watch every episode of most of what's on my list.
that happened to me with MacGyver like a decade ago. I got Netflix, and like this is when you had the DVD service, and MacGyver was on there. So like I started getting just MacGyver DVDs, like season 1, and I watched 5 in a row. I was like, oh, this show's not as good as I remember. Like,
that happened to me with A-Team too.
yeah, you're right. Like,
When
this is pretty
A-Team
formulaic.
hit Netflix, I was like, cool. Now I can watch it from beginning to end and say I've seen every A-Team episode.
Yeah.
I got like halfway through season 1 and I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm out. No more.
And James, you never picked up Next Generation again, did you?
No, I did the same thing with that one. But I mean, that one I got to like halfway through the series, which is a lot of episodes.
That's a
It's
lot,
like
yeah.
20 plus episodes per season, and there were 7 or 8 seasons. So, yeah. And that one I still feel like I might do eventually, because there's at least with A-Team, it's literally the same thing.
Oh, every episode. Yeah. Yep.
Like at least with Star Trek, it's the same formula as far as monster of the week, but at least different things happen to the monster or to get to the monster, or you know what I mean? Like there's just more variables that they change up in that show. Whereas there is always a B.A. Baracus fear of flying joke in every episode of the A-Team. Like, for no reason whatsoever. Even if there's not a plane in that episode, at some point they're going to make a joke about it. Anyway. Number 8, my 8th favorite kids cartoon TV show is Adventures of the Gummy Bears.
Mm-hmm.
And another observation I'll make, a little bit of spoiler to my list, but I guess I wasn't into like quote unquote boys cartoons. You know what I mean? Like the ones that are
like G.I. Joe and He-Man.
Yeah, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Transformers, like those.
Wildcats.
Thundercats. Come on, Zach.
Thundercats.
I have memories of watching all of those and enjoying them, but in retrospect, in looking back and thinking, what was probably my favorite? Which were the shows that like I would have not watched Transformers for? That's what comprises my list, and most of those quote unquote boys shows got knocked off the list. I don't think Adventures of Gummy Bears is not necessarily a boys show, but it's about gummy bears who go on adventures, and it was pretty wholesome kids cartoon, I would say, for the most part. I don't remember a whole lot about it other than it being fun to watch and the characters being funny, and kind of like I remember literally having gummy bears and playing like at school in the what do you call those things? Playground area, and like
the yard,
moving the gummy bears around and having adventures and then eating them after dragging them across play equipment and other stuff. And yeah, it's a great show. With probably of all of these, that's the one that the theme song to the show is stuck in my brain to this day.
Sure.
Oh, it's the best theme song. I will say, of all the shows of that era, it is the best theme song.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah.
If you've never seen the show, it's not actual like gummy bears like you're picturing the candy.
Mm-hmm.
They look like medieval bears in like medieval clothes.
They look like medieval Care Bears.
It's a little Robin Hoodie.
Yeah, for sure. It's Robin Hoodie. They don't.
Yeah.
I don't think they look like Care Bears. Care Bears all look identical for the most part.
Okay.
These
Other
are
than
like
their
all
stomachs.
individual bears.
Yeah.
With like different hairstyles and voices and stuff like.
Mhm.
But they would drink a special
Yes.
potion that they would make. They would make them bouncy.
But bounce on their butts, not on their
Right.
feet.
Yeah,
It was always on their butts they would bounce. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was a gargoyle or an evil wizard or something like that.
Yeah, the mustache guy.
Yeah, I can't remember who the bad guy was.
Yeah.
Evidently, Michael Eisner came up with this cartoon.
Did he?
Yeah, it was a Disney one. Yeah.
Good for him.
He
Good
came
for
up with the
him.
cartoon when he was struck with inspiration for the show when his son requested the candies one day. And evidently he looked at the candies and said, we should make a cartoon of this. And then
That's great.
they did.
That's great. Okay, my number 8 is Tailspin.
Mm-hmm.
It has Baloo from the Jungle Book as a 1930s cargo pilot. And there's an orphan named Kit Cloudkicker, who comes to work for them, and he has like a like a hoverboard type air surfer thing. And
Oh yeah, he would like water ski behind them, but in air.
in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the same idea.
Yeah.
He would like get towed behind.
Yeah. A competitor was like Shere Khan from the Jungle Book.
Mhm.
This show was so much fun. He's got like the most iconic plane, this like yellow plane with, dual turbines or whatever, dual props.
And the pontoons for the water landing.
Yeah, the pontoons, absolutely. It's just so fun. It was literally just Baloo from the Jungle Book, but as a bush pilot, and lots of characters. I mean, I think King Louie was in it. There's a pirate character. This again a super great intro song.
I couldn't think of it. I think it's one of the less memorable ones. I had to Google
it. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Can you remember it?
Tail, spin. Yeah.
Can you tell me any other part besides that?
Yeah, I could sing the whole thing. I'll do that off air.
No, I'll hear you.
But tailspin, fantastic. My number 8.
All right. My number 8 is Muppet Babies, or Jim Henson's Muppet Babies. So yeah, this is a cartoon with the Muppets. You got Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy and Fozzie, all your Muppets, but they're all babies, toddlers. They're all little. And they all live in a nursery, and they have incredible imaginations. So every episode, they would just play make-believe with each other and pretend to be doing something, going on some adventure. But the show would use lots of stock footage or footage from old movies, or even footage from current movies like Indiana Jones and Star Wars. So they'd have like a Star Wars episode where each of the Muppet Babies is kind of playing Star Wars. And you would see them as the characters, and they would use some actual like TIE fighter footage. And then at the end, Nanny would come in and be like, all right, kids, time for snack time or whatever. And then they would like fade out of their fantasy. And, R2-D2 would be Fozzie wearing like a box, and Darth Vader would be like someone wearing a football helmet. And so it's kind of clever how it would show you sort of how these kids would use these Muppet Babies would use their imaginations to pretend they were in whatever crazy world they were for the day. It was definitely my introduction to a lot of these other movies like Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and even older movies like The Blob would pop up in a lot. It was a fun show. I always look forward to watching it.
Nice.
That was a good one.
My number 7 is Garfield and Friends, which I loved Garfield, the comic strip. Although I got most of my Garfield from the old like collections of books and stuff like that. One of my cousins was really into Garfield, and so she would loan me Garfield book collections, and yeah, I just loved Garfield at the time. And so when they made it a cartoon in 1988, I was like, 11 years old, and I was primed to be into it, and I was. And Friends is because like 2/3 of the show was Garfield and John and Pokey and like all the the Garfield characters, and then another third of it was this farm. Like,
Yeah, with the duck with the floaty, right?
Yes.
With the duck with the floaty and the egg with just the legs sticking out of the bottom of the
I forgot
egg.
about that egg.
Yeah.
I love that
Ham
egg.
the pig.
And Ham the pig. Yeah, there were these other characters that had nothing to do with Garfield, but had to do with like what's Jim Davis, his other cartoon that he was his other comic strip that he was drawing at the time. I think at that point he was doing Garfield like in reruns as far as the comic strip, and he was dedicating most of his time to US Acres. But yeah, I mean, it's a funny show. It is another one where if I watched it now, would it still be funny? I don't know. I feel like there were definitely moments that reflect the comic strip, like the dry humor of the comic strip, and then there were other episodes that were more like adventure-y that really didn't resemble the comic strip much, other than the characters being in it. And so when you had kind of the static shot and John and not spaghetti, lasagna and Garfield just with his dry humor, I feel like that might hold up, but some of the other things in the show, some of the more kid-related type stuff might not hold up as well. I don't know. But I do remember watching the show and thinking the Garfield parts were cool and the U.S. Acres parts were less cool. But I don't know. Maybe if I watched it now, the U.S. Acres stuff is actually the good stuff. Who knows? My number 7.
Nice. Yeah, I like that show a lot too. Okay, my number 7 is a show called Reboot. And Reboot was a computer animated TV show.
I remember this show with the spiky hair, right?
Well, he had more of a center part.
Okay.
James, you remember Reboot?
No.
Oh,
Google it.
Yep.
I think you'll remember what it looked like.
That's right. Okay, it's not spiky; it's chunky hair with the center part.
Oh, for sure.
Yep,
This is very early CG animation before Toy Story. It was incredibly bad animation, but by the time, at the standards of the time, it was pretty incredible. And all the main characters, the heroes, were like computer programs that would have to constantly be fighting like viruses that would try to infect the computer world, called Mainframe. That was like where they lived, and the villains were named like Megabyte and Hexadecimal, stuff like that. And like the characters were Reboot and Dot Matrix, those kind of names.
I do remember seeing this, but it came out in 1994, which was, between middle school and high school for me. It was not a part of my life. That's for
sure. This show was a lot of fun, and I remember watching it just thinking like, this is so cool what they can do with these computers. I thought it was really cool. I got a CD-ROM in the mail. Like there was something where you could like write a postcard and they'd mail you a CD-ROM with a bonus story or something. And I remember I got that CD-ROM and I was pretty excited about it.
Overcompressed 320 by 240
Yeah.
video file.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
How crazy is that sentence you just said? I wrote a postcard to receive a CD-ROM.
Oh yeah. It was great. Yeah, so I loved Reboot. I think they have since rebooted the show several iterations, as late as 2001, which I haven't seen those. I can't vouch for those. I'm sure they like updated the animation, and so it might lose some of the charm.
Netflix rebooted it in 2018.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Are they self-aware characters where they've been rebooted and their CGI has been updated?
I have no idea. It's called
That sounds terrible.
Reboot: The Guardian Code, whatever that means.
Yeah. You really got to watch the original to just get a sense of like the world we lived in. How awful it was. It was a different time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do remember Reboot was kind of at the tail end of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
And like usually around 10:30 is when you were like, okay, they're putting the experimental cartoons are coming on now. Like we're not doing DuckTales or any more like this. We're doing the weirder stuff by the end of the morning.
Yeah.
All right, my number 7 is Inspector Gadget. This was a cartoon about a inspector named Inspector Gadget. He wore, if you haven't seen them before, he kind of looks like Inspector Clouseau. He wears like a gray trench coat and kind of like a deerstalker cap. And he has all these crazy gadgets within him. They never explain it, but like his hat can turn into a helicopter. His arms and legs can stretch. Whatever gadget he needs can like come out of his body. You normally say go gadget, whatever, and it would happen. He had a daughter named Penny. And then Penny had a dog named Brain. And then the bad guy was Claw, who you only ever saw from like behind in a chair. Like you just see his hand, stroking a cat and yelling Inspector Gadget. But the whole premise was Inspector Gadget was terrible at his job. He was an awful policeman. He was an awful inspector. And while he was trying to foil the bad guy, Penny and Brain were doing all the actual work. Like Brain had a little dog collar that would like a microphone would come out so that he could hear from Penny and they could communicate somehow. And Penny had like a cool iPad communicator before iPads were invented. and they'd always be the ones that figured out how to stop the bad guy, and then Inspector Gadget would kind of stumble his way into their plan and end up being the hero. And I'm sure it's pretty formulaic, but it was just really fun watching Inspector Gadget be silly and goofy and have all his gadgets every episode.
Oh yeah,
I watched a lot of that show too. For sure.
Penny was one of my first crushes ever.
I mean, she was smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very smart.
My number 6 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was great. And
Classic.
I'm sure would not hold up on like a marathon rewatch, but feel like of most of these, this is most likely to be like a show that I would casually watch again. You know what I mean? Just pop in an episode, not necessarily binge them, but I think it would hold up as a fun thing to watch again at some point. And not much to say about it other than, it was fun and started a phenomenon, really. This TV show did. My number 6.
My number 6 is the previously mentioned David the Gnome.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I love David the Gnome. It was just such a. I want to live in the world of David the Gnome. If I could go in there, he would like ride foxes through the forest, and he was so good natured. He just like he's just the kind of gnome everyone wants to be when they grow up. I really like that show a lot.
Yeah, evidently this was on Nick Jr. from 1988 to 95. So I think by then I was like 11 in 1988. So I think this one passed me by too. I mean, I remember it. I just never watched it.
Now that you checked in. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is Zach and I were watching cartoons at literally the exact same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And James, you were watching very similar
sometimes in the
ones.
same room.
Sometimes in the same room, right?
Because Kyle is, if you didn't know this, James, 12 days older than me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just.
So.
Yeah.
Where,
less than 2 weeks.
Where James, obviously you're a couple years older than we are, but you're still watching some of the same stuff. Because a lot of these shows, especially these 80s cartoons, like were premiered in the early 80s and then just were syndicated for a decade. So a lot of 5-year-olds experience it at their own time because they just kept repeating them over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was on its original run, but I'm curious to know if you guys watched the reruns and I was watching the first pass.
I mean, there's a strong chance that some of these were reruns that we were catching versus like Inspector Gadget came on 83. I was born. I was definitely not watching the first pass of Inspector Gadget.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, syndication was a huge thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and as a kid, you didn't know the difference.
No, and I also didn't know if it was going to be a new episode or not. I would just turn on. I knew Inspector Gadget was on this channel this time, and if it was a new one, great. And if it was a rerun, fine with me too. Didn't really bother me.
Right.
All right, my number 6 is DuckTales.
My number 5 is DuckTales.
Your number 5 is DuckTales. Great. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
I have watched DuckTales recently with my son. It's on Disney Plus, and I'd say overall it holds up. It's not, like
these are the new ones or
the original.
The original.
Yeah, with Scrooge McDuck, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, Launchpad, the Beagle Boys, and what was their mother or that witch that they worked with? You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about, but I'm not.
I don't remember.
Pull the name.
Yeah. So DuckTales. You have Scrooge McDuck, who's the uncle to. One of the uncles to Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Apparently, Huey and Dewey and Louie don't have parents. They just have lots of uncles. Because isn't Donald Duck their uncle also?
Yeah, isn't Scrooge just all their uncles?
Well,
I don't think he's uncle to one of them, right?
Well, yeah, all 3 of them. Yes, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Yeah. And yes, Scrooge McDuck. He's this incredibly rich duck. He is the vault full of gold he swims through, and the Beagle Boys are trying to often steal his gold, and they have to foil them. There's also a Scottish duck who's like his cousin, McQuack or something like that.
Sure, there's a robot duck. There's all kinds.
The robot. I forgot about the robot duck.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. There was all of them. The one that my son loves the most is Scrooge McDuck builds these giant robots to build buildings,
Mhm.
and then they get reprogrammed to tear down the buildings. They start playing hockey with all the Huey, Dewey, and Louie with like rail signs, and it's a fun one.
There was a lot of hockey in the show for some reason. I don't know if there was it animated by Canadians?
There was another cartoon where it was like a hockey duck
Yeah,
cartoon.
There was a Mighty Ducks cartoon.
Yeah, Mighty Ducks cartoon.
Yeah,
maybe
based
that's
on
Yeah.
on the movie. Yeah, I mean DuckTales. I just would tune in. I think it was on almost every day. And I remember that during the credits, which this also had an amazing song, Bart Simpson would come in and announce like whatever was going to be on Simpsons that night. So my first
Mhm.
exposure to Simpsons was hearing Bart's voice during the credits of DuckTales, doing his little promo for like the next episode.
Interesting.
Which I was not allowed to watch Simpsons at that age, so my mom turned it off.
I'm also reading that Launchpad McQuack originated in DuckTales. I didn't remember knowing that.
Totally.
Oh yeah. So Launchpad McQuack. I don't remember who the Scottish duck is.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that one out too.
Yeah, Launchpad McQuack would always like crash his plane.
Mhm.
He was a terrible pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tailspin was originally going to be a DuckTales spinoff,
Mm-hmm.
and Launchpad McQuack was going to be Baloo's character. That's why it's called Tailspin, right? DuckTales, Tailspin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a DuckTales thing.
Cool. Yeah, and this is another show that like I can just be out in society and just all of a sudden be like DuckTales, woo. You know, it like just comes out of nowhere all of a sudden.
It rivals Gummy Bears for theme songs.
Yeah.
Did you see the movie?
Oh yeah, like when I was a kid. It's been a long time.
I'm sure I did, but I don't
It
remember.
was like a mummy curse or
Yeah, it was like an Egypt
yes,
thing.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. It was pretty
Did
good.
anybody watch the reboot on Netflix?
No.
No.
I didn't either, despite the fact that like Ben Schwartz does a voice and there's a couple other voices in the show that, you know, made news in my circles, yet I never watched it. I think it's canceled at this point, but it's kind of weird that Netflix had DuckTales reboot, isn't it?
Why?
It's like a Disney thing.
Well, Disney has it now. I wonder if that was a pre-Disney Plus thing that they did.
It was 2017, so it was definitely
pre-Disney
pre-Disney Plus.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just
Netflix
strange
had all the
that
Marvels.
that Disney let somebody make something that's closely tied to Donald Duck.
I
You know what I mean? That
I don't know. I think it's
like the Marvel stuff is one thing,
Yeah.
but Donald Duck is a Disney thing.
Yeah. Is Donald Duck ever even in DuckTales?
No, but
Ooh, I don't
DuckTales
think
is
so.
related to Donald Duck for
Right,
sure.
for
with
sure.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Donald Duck has appeared on DuckTales, but no, he wasn't like a part of it on an episode to episode basis.
Maybe he like dropped them off. Yeah, here's your uncle's house.
Yeah.
See ya later.
Looks like there was a voice for Donald Duck in season 1. But
Okay.
maybe that's the only season.
James, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is easily DuckTales, which we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My number 5 is Batman the Animated Series.
Okay.
That show is way better than it should have been. It was it could have just been a goofy Batman kids cartoon, but it had amazing art style. Like this like normal drawings in normal shows, you have white piece of paper and then they draw the cartoon or whatever. This one they're like, no, we're going to start on black paper. And if you want to have any lightness on there, you draw white. Like, so the base of every drawing was black. It had this amazing kind of film noir art to it. The voice acting for Batman is like the best. This is my favorite Batman of any iteration, is from Batman the Animated Series. And yeah, It was so good. I loved it.
I like that show as well.
Yeah. My number 5 is Thundercats. And if Kindergarten Me was making this list, it'd be number 1 because I love Thundercats. I used to draw the Thundercats in my books all the time in kindergarten. I wrote it as Thundercats because I didn't quite understand the TH yet. So I used the little F on there, but I'm sure it was adorable at the time. Thundercats.
Sure, it wasn't concerning to your parents at all.
Not for not that age. No, they were more worried about the enormous glasses I had to wear versus can you pronounce a TH versus an F. So, Thundercats were a group of, I guess I don't even know how to describe them. They look like people with cat faces. They're big, muscular cat people.
Yeah.
And they walked like people. Imagine He-Man, but with the head of a tiger is probably the best way to describe it. So there was Lion-O. He was the leader. He had a cool sword. Panthro was a puma one. There was Chitara. There was other. Snarf was this little one that ran around. And they had a fight. I don't remember who the bad guy was. It was some witch mummy of some sort. Anyway, every episode, the bad guy would send beasts for them to fight, and they'd have to fight against these monsters. And then Lion-O would use his sword, give me sight beyond sight. We'll look through the eye of it, and the sword would get bigger and give him powers, and he'd be a great fighter. And I'm sure it was very formulaic, but it was a show I really enjoyed at the time, and the animation was just a little different than He-Man and those style shows. It was a little bit more kinetic. It was an American show, but it definitely was inspired by some of that kind of Japanese animation at the time. And it just looked a little different than everything else on TV at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Thundercats is I don't know. Somebody was sniffing some good cocaine when they came up with that show.
Oh yeah, it's like what if it's He-Man but with cats? Right. It's
weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird concept. If you imagined yourself with a blank piece of paper in front of you and you were like, oh, all right, let's make a kids show. How they came up with all those elements and combined them into one, I don't know.
Yeah, they were just probably what can we do to sell toys and to make it all popular?
Sure. My number 4 is Muppet Babies. The aforementioned made Kyle's list. It's gonna make mine as well. I love the show. I like the Muppets in general, but I thought Muppet Babies was super charming and fun to watch. And there's something about most of the episodes taking place in an environment that was not foreign as a kid, right? It resembled the rooms that you existed in as a kid. You weren't a baby, but you know, that's all you knew, I guess, was those types of worlds. And so to see kind of these Muppets who are all generally good-natured characters interact and have fun together. It was a lot about imagination as opposed to real danger. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. I have no clue. I doubt it would hold up as far as keeping my attention for as long as it did when I was a kid, but I think it would hold up as a show that kids could watch, and it would be generally pretty wholesome and not seem like there's 80s datedness to it.
I doubt it. Yeah,
but that's just my assumption. I don't know if that's to be true. But my number 4, Muppet Babies.
2 quick interjections.
Yeah,
Muppet Babies. All the adults were always showed from the knees down.
Mm-hmm.
You never saw their bodies, which I thought was interesting.
Did they talk? I don't remember.
Yeah, they talked. Like there was the nanny, and she would come into the room.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one episode where a couple times they left the nursery and they'd walk around the city, and they'd always be at knee level with everyone. You never saw the adults' faces. So I thought that was interesting. And then Mumra, that was the bad guy on Thundercats.
Okay.
It came to me. I just need to clarify that one.
Thank goodness. While you're clarifying, Wildcats was definitely a show, just a different show.
What was Wildcats?
It was, I don't know.
Might be what you're thinking.
It was
No, I was definitely thinking of Thundercat or Thundercats.
It was like X-Men, but with like knockoff X-Men.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm looking at it now. I don't know if I watched that, but it's Wild CATS.
Exactly. It was some acronym.
I don't like that at all.
Covert action, something
Team
heroes.
of superheroes.
Yeah.
We could have made a list of 80s and 90s cartoons that are just acronyms for something else.
Yeah, a lot of those.
Yeah.
A lot of acronyms.
Mask, Cops, yep, all those. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Cops. Forgot about Cops.
I've got a long list of honorable mentions that I'm just gonna like breeze through so you guys can go, oh yeah.
Okay. James, your number 4 was Muppet Babies.
Yep, sure was.
My number 4 was Noozles. I loved the Noozles.
How do you spell Noozles?
Noozles.
Noozles.
This was a Japanese show. I didn't know that at the time. It got redubbed in English, so I watched the English version of this. It was about a girl who had a koala stuffed animal, and if she rubbed his nose with her nose, called a noozle, it would come to life, and his name was Blinky, and he could fly, and he's from an alternative dimension called Koala Walla Land. And he had another koala friend named Pinky. And so Blinky and Pinky would help her like solve things. And every now and then they would go back to Koala Walla Land through these. They would open up like a portal, is like a big black circle, kind of like what's the movie we were talking about with Chip and Dale? Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right? Like those circles you could go through. They'd open up a black circle. They'd go to Koala Walla Land and fly around, and they were just these flying koalas. And they would eat eucalyptus. I think the girl's grandfather had planted a eucalyptus tree outside their house, so they always had food to eat. And I was obsessed with Noozles. I loved Noozles. I had my own like koala stuffed animal. And I loved it. So yeah, Noozles, big favorite in my household. And that's still how I think. If there was another dimensional creature, that's absolutely how I picture him moving from dimension to dimension. It's like opening up a black circle that you jump in, kind of like Sliders.
Oh
but
yeah,
like more basic than that, just a round circle.
or like Doctor Strange.
But again, super more basic.
Yeah.
Just a black circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely remember seeing commercials for this on like Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever watching an episode, or I think I had aged out by the time that one came around.
Zach, I'm stumped. I've never seen or heard of this before. So,
you just have no awareness of Noodles?
I mean, maybe as a kid, I can't say that I never saw it, but if I did, I have no recollection of this whatsoever. But by the way, Zach, now your Zoom filter is very fitting. You guys can't.
No, I did it.
Huh?
I did it on purpose. Yeah.
No, it before it annoyed me, but now that we're talking about old cartoons and Zach has like an old TV as a filter, it actually looks clever.
Had to get into it.
Yeah, nice job. Nice job.
Thank you.
All right, my number 3 is X-Men, the TV series. And this was the Marvel characters, the X-Men. And this was a daily cartoon of them, where you had all your favorite X-Men like Cyclops, Wolverine, Jean Grey, Dr. X, and they were battling Magneto in his
Dr.
various...
X?
Sorry, Professor X. My apologies. I mean, I'm sure he was a doctor too, so...
Sure.
At conferences, he was Dr. X, but, amongst his friends, he was Professor X.
Sure.
And they were fighting Magneto and the Sentinels and that group of bad guys. But this wasn't like a monster or battle of the week kind of TV show. This was a TV show where seasons had arcs. And they would, like each episode would have a fight, would advance that story, but there really was an overall season arc to what was happening within the X-Men, the TV show. Like I think they did the Dark Phoenix saga for a couple episodes. They did, whatever is the one with Mystique and the mutants, and the Senators trying to stop mutations from happening. That was part of the show. So it took these rather serious comic book stories and put it into really interesting animated form. And also gave you like really good animation, really good characters, really good development. Like whoever made this show cared about making an actual comic book story for kids and not just cranking out, oh, here's Wolverine fighting Sabretooth for, an episode and let's move on to the next one. Like it was a very well thought out show. Had a cool theme song, and it's interesting now that X-Men in the 90s was probably the biggest Marvel property. And now here we are, like in the heyday of Marvel, and X-Men is hardly talked about. It's sort of this stepchild to the MCU. And, it's just interesting how that has changed in the last 20 years.
For now.
For now, it could come back, but
sure.
I mean, like we had X-Men movie 20 years ago, and X-Men definitely helped bring us to where we are with superhero movies, but they are not the hot Marvel property that they were when we were kids.
I would agree with that. I like that show as well. But didn't make my top 3, which is where we're at. My third favorite kids cartoon TV show of all time was Camp Candy. You guys ever watch this?
I've never heard of this.
It wasn't on very long, and I was pretty bummed when I learned that it was not coming back, because I remember like waiting for the new season of cartoons to come on, and then like Camp Candy wasn't among it, and then like a year later it wasn't among it, and I was like, I guess that's it for Camp Candy. But
and this is John Candy.
Oh, wow.
This was John Candy's cartoon, and it was voiced by him, and he is one of the characters in the cartoon. And some of the episodes actually had like live action John Candy introducing the cartoon. I think he was introducing the cartoon. I vaguely remember he would give you a tip for like kind of like a great outdoors type tip, like how to survive the outdoors, and then he would like lead that into the cartoon, something like that. But I loved John Candy as a kid. I liked his movies, whether they were appropriate for my age or not. I loved all the ones I could see, and loved the cartoon. And it's basically he's just like the camp owner / counselor, and almost every episode would start with him like reminiscing to the kids who were attending the camp, and then that would like turn into a memory of something that happened at the camp at some point. So it was very like storyteller. It had a storytelling framework where he could provide voiceover for what was happening in the story of the episode. And yeah, I always loved him, and I thought the show was legitimately funny at the time. Don't know if it would hold up for sure, but as a kid, I thought it was funny. And it's a little, there's no like overarching plot or anything, but I remember the episodes feeling different, less formulaic than some other cartoons. But again, that's just my memory of it. I have not revisited it since I was a child, so I don't know if that would hold up. But as it sits right now, it's my number 3.
I recognize this. I didn't know I knew this, but nice.
You did know it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, my number 3, a show I was just obsessed with. It's another Japanese anime show that got dubbed into English. Although I did not know that at the time. It's called Superbook. I imagine Kyle did not watch this. James, did you ever hear of Superbook?
It doesn't ring a bell from said out loud, but let's see.
Okay.
2011?
No, I think it's been rebooted. This is from 1981 to 1982.
Oh, 1981. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Why do you think I haven't heard of Superbook?
If you Google original Superbook
Bible stories?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't watch this.
I vaguely feel like I've seen this before. Not seen it, but know of it. You know what I mean? Type of thing.
It's amazing. So here's how the show starts, right? There's a boy and a girl. They're like, maybe like 9. And this mean old dad tells him to go upstairs and clean the dusty attic. And it's filled with all these old books. And they're upset about having to clean this attic. Anyway, they find this one book in the stack of old dusty books, and it's Superbook. And when you open it up, you can time travel to any time in the world. And so they time traveled back to different like Bible stories.
So they chose the Bible.
Yeah, so they witness all these different Bible stories taking place, like Adam and Eve or stuff like that. And then they're joined by this like time traveling robot. He's like this stout little red robot with a bunch of buttons. And so the three of them, basically, this boy, girl, and the robot, go on these adventures through these different Bible stories. And they kind of like, yeah, it's amazing. And it's very much anime with like a frame rate of like, 6 frames a second or something. And very exaggerated expressions and stuff like that. And I ate this up as a kid. I loved Superbook. They've since rebooted it with like very different animation style. That's like a lot less anime and more like, I don't know, crisp, I would say. But I love the original Superbook for sure.
Zach, this robot looks really familiar.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I don't know if I've seen Superbook, but I definitely have seen this robot before.
And I love that robot's voice is iconic in my mind.
I was more into the Hanna-Barbera Bible stories. I needed some blood. I needed some, some slave driving.
There's none of that.
Yeah. James, I know I've told Zach about this. Have I told you about these Hanna-Barbera Bible cartoons that like my friend had growing up?
No.
They were Bible stories, and like a group of kids. It was kind of the same idea. It was probably a rip off of Storybook.
Mm-hmm.
A group of kids would like, huh?
Superbook?
Sorry, Superbook. Thank you. They would time travel to a biblical story and experience it, but it was like Old Testament in all its glory. So they show the battle of David and Goliath, and like when Goliath got hit by the rock, he would like bleed, like on screen and like fall over and be dead and everything. And it was just like, wow, they are not for this kid's show. They're not holding back on Bible stories whatsoever. They do the story of Samson, which I know Zach, you think Samson's a pretty terrible person.
He's my least favorite person from the Bible.
Yeah, so they have him like bludgeoning people, and it was a rather violent kid's take on the Bible.
Interesting. Before you go, Kyle, can we just note you got a real Cameron Diaz thing going on with your hair?
Oh, do I really? I can't see my camera. Oh my goodness! Thank you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a little oily today, so I can really stand it up. Let's see if I can get it going again for the video. Nah, I can't do it. It's a once in a video kind of experience right there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for pointing it out for all the video YouTube watchers.
Oh, no problem.
They noticed.
Oh, they noticed a long time ago. Yeah. All right. My number 3 is the previously mentioned Batman the Animated Series. This show is incredible. This show was inspired by the what's that director's name? Tim Burton Batman movies. It uses that kind of the same Art Deco style that Zach you were talking about. It even uses the theme from the Batman movies, incorporates that into their own theme. The music's very much the same. There is this minimalist style to the backgrounds, which still look amazing. There's all these Dutch angles to it. It's just it's a great looking show. Like sometimes Batman is just a black silhouette with white eyes, so they really capture how he can disappear into the darkness. But it also gave great characters outside of Batman. So I didn't realize this at the time, but like Mark Hamill played Joker, and that's an iconic performance right there. He also had Catwoman, Harley Quinn was on this show. All the bad guys were. It was a little Monster of the Week, but there also were kind of overarching storylines, or there'd be multiple episodes. So there'd be a lot of 2 and 3 parters because they couldn't tell like one whole story. I've started watching this actually with Galen. He's been into it, and he loves the Clayface 2-parter about an actor who's taken.
That's a great, yeah, so good.
Yeah, like usually he's at the age where he wants to watch the same things over and over again. So he's like, "Can we watch the Clayface one?" Or like, "Go ahead, sure, why not?" Clayface is a great story. Yeah, it's. I wish they would make. I don't say I wish. I'm glad that they made a show this good when we were kids. to watch Batman, because this was also probably my first exposure to Batman before seeing the movies.
I'm pretty sure Harley Quinn originated on that animated show.
Really? Oh, so it's not even like a comic book character. It's
I mean, it is now.
Well,
but
yeah,
it started on the cartoon show and then
Okay.
got popular enough that they put her into the comics and then
interesting.
later
Yeah.
the movies and stuff.
Remember, the Mad Hatter was on the show a lot also.
That's an original villain.
Oh yeah. But I just remember him being a bad guy who popped up a lot. Scarecrow. It was a great show.
Sure. My number 2 is Alf, the animated series, which if you were a kid in the 80s, there was a television show, live action television show called Alf, which stands for Alien Life Form. And Alf in the television show was a puppet alien, and he lived with a human family, and he was very, I don't know, crass. I don't know. He was like just this super confident alien who was trying to figure out the world, but cracked jokes constantly and laughed at himself often.
Yeah.
And
very sarcastic.
Super sarcastic. Yep.
He was Twitter before Twitter.
Sure. Okay. I'll roll with that. Anyway, the TV show, the live action TV show got popular enough that they were like, hey, let's make a kids cartoon out of this for some reason. Even though I don't think the original Alf sitcom was necessarily made for kids. Like maybe kids as in like 11 and up, but it definitely wasn't made for 11 and down, I would say. Because once you got past the fact that there was a puppet on the screen, I don't think you'd get his jokes in the live action show. Anyway, they make a cartoon and called Alf the Animated Series, and it's very little to do with the live action show, I would say. Like there's definitely Alf exists in both forms, but in the cartoon, it's Alf on his home planet of Melmac. And so he's no longer a fish out of water. He's just one of many of his kind. And you get to experience what Alf's life would have been like on his home planet. And I loved this show. Like I loved Alf in general and also this show. And it's basically the same jokes over and over about Alf and cats and baseball and like all this other stuff that's pretty deep Alf lore. But I just remember the show not necessarily being funny, but being like strange. Like when you watched the lineup of Saturday morning cartoons, this one would come on and it kind of felt like a fever dream watching it. Like there's tons of jokes about Alf eating cats in the cartoon and stuff like that. And there's no other show where your main character is joked about regularly about eating a household pet and things like that. And I don't remember it being particularly raunchy or anything. I just remember it feeling more edgy than traditional Saturday morning cartoons. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the vibe I got as a kid. And I remember enjoying it and looking forward to it. Looking forward to it every week. My number 2. I'm also seeing there was only 26 episodes of it. Did not realize that.
Oh, I'm sure they just kept playing the same 26 over and over again.
Yeah, that is not many episodes. I've probably seen all of them, I imagine, because I don't feel like I watched Alf for one season. I feel like I watched it for years. So
there was also a spin-off show called Alf Tales where he like reenacted famous stories, and the first episode of that was a Robin Hood story.
I remember that as well. Yep.
Yeah. My number 2 is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Loved that show. So good. My favorite episode was when an alien came to Earth and impersonated Dale. And so there were 2 Dales, and they were trying to figure out which one's the real Dale and which one's the alien Dale. It's kind of like a thing. Thing. And it was great.
Nice.
My number 2 is Voltron, and this is Kindergarten Kyle's favorite pick, not Thundercats. I don't know what I was thinking. Voltron was a Japanese import. I guess it was reassembled and redubbed from a show called Beast King Go Lion, which is an amazing title and probably a terrible translation. But Voltron's a story of this intergalactic defender called Voltron, who's made up of 4 robotic lions and piloted, I think, by kids or teenagers, usually in the show. And whenever some beast from some deep space dimension would show up to threaten the planet, the lions would fight the beast, form into Voltron, which is this giant fighting mech, and eventually defeat the beast. And this show, I'm sure, is very formulaic. Even as a kid, I recognized that every episode, the beast would show up, the bad guy, or whatever it was supposed to be. They would first try and fight it as lions. They couldn't do it. It would get bigger for some reason. So they would form Voltron, which takes a good 2 minutes to form Voltron, but it's an incredible sequence, right? When they, form arm, leg, form head, all that kind of cool stuff. They'd form Voltron. They'd fight the beast hand to hand with the lion hands and lion feet. Still couldn't defeat it. So then they'd eventually make the sword and then cut the beast in half. And every single episode was the exact same sequence to the fight, which I didn't care as a kid. I knew was going to happen, and it was great. I just love the fact that it was like this cool fighting robot. I had one of the Voltron toys. I had the black lion, who was the body and the head, and I really wanted the rest of them so I could make Voltron, but my parents never got me the rest. So I just had to pretend I had the one and make the little head pop up and do what I could with the rest of it.
Poor Kyle.
I know. I was such a depraved kid. Only had one Voltron.
Depraved or deprived?
Sorry, deprived.
Both.
Not depraved. That's my other list.
That's really
Thank you.
funny.
Deprived kid, yes.
I remember the toy far more than I remember watching the kids show.
Oh man, I watched that show all the time. I think, it was only on for like 2 seasons in its original run. And I think I've seen every single Voltron.
What's the point of buying a kid a couple of them and not planning on buying them all of them? That seems like torture.
Well, yeah, I think my parents are like, you like Voltron? Here's a Voltron toy. Like, and I'm like,
You
I
didn't
want the
tell
rest of-
them like it's not really the toy until you buy me all 5 of them.
I'm sure
Or
I
6
did.
of
And they
them,
said,
however many.
that's nice.
I didn't really even watch that show much. I had all of them.
You had, James, you still have them?
No, come on.
Oh,
They're long gone.
bummer.
Probably worth money if you had the originals at this point.
There are some of I had some toys from these shows, which I'm like, obviously I played them as a kid. And I
Right.
think out of the box, not worth a lot of money, but like, man, if I'd hold on to those things,
Yeah. They might be worth $100.
I know I could make some money on eBay. Not all 100 of that, but
Right. Yeah,
All
but
right.
I like that show too, but not one
But-
of my favorites.
well, James, what's your number one? We're here to our number ones.
My number one, my most favorite kids cartoon TV show is The Littles. I loved The Littles. It was so good. It's hard to explain. It's basically like these little somewhat humanoid people that they weren't animals, but they weren't humans either. They have like little pig noses almost, and they kind of resemble gnomes, but they're not like the fat garden gnomes. They're like fit gnomes, I would say, thin gnomes. I don't know. I don't even remember if the show ever describes like what they are exactly. I don't think they're supposed to be mice or anything like that. But like mice, they kind of live in the walls of they live in the human world. They're really little, hence the name The Littles, and they go on adventures, and most humans don't know they exist. But one human in particular definitely knows they exist. It was a kid named Henry, and Henry would go on adventures with these little animal type things that lived in his walls and out in the garden and out in the world, and it was very fantastical and fun and weird and interesting. It's another show that like I remember watching for years, and yet there's only like 20 some odd episodes for it, so obviously there weren't it wasn't around much. I probably watched the same episodes over and over and just never clocked that that's what I was doing. But yeah, it was just such a charming show. I remember occasionally they would, like mid episode, they would break into a segment where they would teach you arts and crafts or like give you safety tips. Like there would be tips about like not getting in the car with strangers and stuff like that. Yeah, it was a very wholesome show, fast moving, weird, but like wholesomely weird, not like weird just to be strange. And yeah, it landed for me. I loved it. The Littles.
I definitely watched this show.
Yeah.
I recognize this. Yep.
Yeah, I think I read the books too, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. It was based on the book.
Mhm.
Or like a series of books, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I don't remember ever reading it, so I don't think I did.
It's the same studio as Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, it was Deke.
Yep, Deke, that's right. I forgot
Yeah.
about you. You said it
Oh,
with the
for
perfect
sure.
voice.
Yeah. All right, my number one, it has to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
My number one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Awesome.
Bingo.
Very cool. Bingo.
That's a bingo.
Yeah, it's a super bingo. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or as it was known in the UK at the time, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
It's so upsetting to hear them sing that theme song, and the only thing that's different is they say the word hero, but everything else is
Yeah.
exactly the same.
I don't think I've ever heard the alternate theme song.
Oh yeah, Google Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles theme song, and it's exactly the same, like except for they say the word hero instead of ninja.
So when the live action movies came out in the UK, did they change those too to hero?
Yeah, and they heavily censored out the violence.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, there wasn't
They
a
had-
whole lot of violence in even the live action.
Not true.
Well, no,
Not true.
The first one has fighting in it. The Secret
Yeah.
of the Ooze, even for US, they had to censor the violence out. They couldn't use weapons. That's why Michelangelo uses like sausages to fight them.
Yeah, but they edited out the sausage scene in the British version.
They went that far.
Yeah, they took out the sausage nunchucks. So they said it looked too much like real nunchucks.
Wait,
That's
so
ridiculous.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the live action movie
Yes.
came out.
Yes.
They had weapons.
Yeah, they had weapons. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And then in
it's kind
Secret
of
of the Ooze, there's not any weapons?
they don't use their weapon. They can't use their weapons. I don't know if there's no weapons. They can't use their weapons to fight humans, at least.
Yeah.
So that like
They very rarely use them against humans. They use them against Razar and Tokar.
Mhm.
Okay. Interesting.
But like there's a
I-
big scene in like a abandoned mall or something at night, and they're using found objects in the store.
Yeah,
To do all
like
their
Jackie
fighting.
Chan style.
Yep.
Okay. I was going to say,
But
I've never heard that before. I believe it. I just never made that observation before.
But the first one has a lot of violence. Like Shredder gets
Like
like
crushed by a
crushed in a compactor.
on purpose.
Raphael gets like beat up. Casey, remember, has that whole scene where he's like fighting with the hockey stick and
Uh-huh.
stuff.
no,
and,
I remember
like-
all of those things. I just don't remember the violence being like gratuitous or like something that a kid couldn't handle.
I think
Sure.
I think it was.
It wasn't
considered
like they
violent
were
for kids at the
snapping
time.
arms and you know what I mean? Like
No, it's not
Oh,
John
yeah.
Wick or anything like that.
right.
But
That's what I'm saying. Like it didn't seem inappropriate. Like if I was a parent bringing my child to a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live action movie, it was an appropriate level of violence, in my opinion.
Oh, totally. I just wouldn't describe it as like there's no
Yeah.
fighting or violence
Sure.
in it.
Casey Jones chooses to kill Shredder. Like Shredder falls into a dumpster or to
And
a
he's just
garbage
like,
truck,
oops.
and then Casey
Right.
Jones turns on the compression part. You know,
Yeah.
oops.
Sure,
So
but it's
it's like-
Shredder, and it's like
very casual.
Yeah,
murder.
but I'm just saying it's not like Disney where someone falls into like a fiery pit. It is like a character makes a conscious choice to kill the bad guy.
yeah, I don't know. Some people are wound up way too tight if they took offense to that.
I don't know. I mean,
Uh,
it was different back then. Violence was
I mean, give him due process,
Yeah.
right? Have a trial.
Forget
Shred-
that.
Shredder.
America.
Is this your helmet?
Okay, so
Okay,
my
yeah, go
number
ahead.
one, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Loved this show. I had all the action figures. I had the turtle van.
Mhm.
There's 4 kids in my family, And so that we wouldn't fight, we all like had a turtle that was our turtle, right? So I was Raphael.
Nice.
And so I had all the Raphael stuff and love Raphael to this day. Yeah, big fan of the show.
Yeah, it was a great cartoon. I looked forward to it every day, afternoon, whenever. I think it was in the afternoon, whenever it was on. Loved Michelangelo. He was my favorite as a kid. He was a party dude. Just loved his antics. The bad guys were pretty great in it. Like I loved Krang, this giant
he was
interdimensional
Dimension
brain.
X, yeah.
And then he was like in the belly of this giant robot. And then there's the neutrinos who were like these alien kids who had like a flying car. The neutrinos were great. Bebop and Rocksteady, which I'm super mad that they got kind of remade into Tokar and Razor.
Because Bebop and Rocksteady are way better.
Bebop and Rocksteady were way better. Yeah.
Punks.
The arcade game was great. I loved everything Turtles as a kid. Like toys. They would make. I don't know, between my brother and I, we probably had like 30 turtle action figures because you had like the base one, you had the scuba one, you had the samurai one. Like they would always make a different line of them. And right, they're turtles. Like I don't know if they have scuba gear, but like they always make a different line of them. And then they make all 4 of them, right? So I wouldn't always buy all 4 of them. But I just remember having like a pile of turtles with all these different, weapons and outfits and gear, and it was ridiculous. Love the live action movies when those came out. Super excited about them.
Yeah, I mean,
Vanilla Ice was in it. Like, I mean, Turtles plus Vanilla Ice. You couldn't make a 8-year-old any happier in the early 90s.
If people thought the live action movies were violent, they definitely should have read some of the original comic books.
Oh yeah, it's
those
not
were
a kid's comic
super
at all.
violent.
No,
yeah,
no.
Like pre-cartoon show, the Ninja Turtles comic books were very, very violent. They were not made for kids at all, I would say. Yeah, I remember reading those in anticipation of the cartoon coming out. And then the cartoon was what it was. But I never even noted. When the cartoon came out, the comics became cooler because they could show things the cartoons couldn't show. Just as far as like how far things would go. Like it was obvious as a kid reading the comic books. I read the collections of the comic books, but reading the collections that was kind of something I shouldn't have type of thing versus the content from the cartoon. I'm curious if anybody has that experience anymore because it's so accessible at this point. There's been like 800 million variations of the Turtles at this point. I don't know.
Yeah.
I heard somewhere that the Ninja Turtles had become once again the highest rated kids TV show like a few years ago when they had a resurgence on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, Nickelodeon owns them now, and it could be, yeah.
And that kind of blew my mind because they've been around for a long time. It's strange how that concept, as wacky as it is on paper, has kind of stood the test of time as something that society is interested in, like Ninja Turtles that are teenagers. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm kind of glad though that the most recent Hollywood reboot is like, I guess, dead in the water, right? That's it.
I haven't seen those Michael Bay ones at all.
Yeah,
they look terrible.
I mean, they kind of like they're not even teenagers in that show, in that movie.
Aren't they aliens or something?
Yeah, they're aliens for some reason, and they're not doing teenager thing. I mean, they kind of are, but not real. Not like cliched teenager things like the cartoons did. And
yeah, the cartoons, they want to skateboard and eat pizza, and they would bicker with each other. Like they're siblings.
I mean, they kind of do that in the new ones, but it's just so bad. I don't know. That and like the Turtles never really look like turtles. They look like, pleasant visualizations of what we think of as turtles. Not literal turtles.
Yes.
With like mouths and eyes and noses.
They have teeth.
Right.
Well, I mean, the first live action ones had teeth with 2 of them.
Sure. I
Yeah.
think the new live action ones have teeth. They're just on a face that they tried to resemble a turtle with. And so it was disturbing looking.
Yeah, no.
Anyway. Cool. So I guess Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and what else was a carryover from all three of us? Is that it?
I think
DuckTales?
James, you and I had Muppet
That
Babies.
wasn't on mine.
Okay. Yeah, we shared Muppet.
There were 2 Batmans.
Right.
2 DuckTales.
That's it.
Oh, and David and the Gnome.
There's 2 of those.
Yeah.
Right. That was a carryover.
There's 2 Chippendales.
Right.
Mhm.
2 Chippendales. But the only one that hit all 3 of our lists was Teenage
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles. Yep.
Yeah.
Which
was your number 3, James?
TMNT was my number 6.
Okay.
And our number 1. You guys want to quickly hear my 11 through 20?
Yes.
The X-Men. Such a great show. The Adventures of the Gummy Bears. Also great show.
Mm-hmm.
Aladdin. So they made the movie Aladdin into a TV show, Aladdin. And I loved that show. I was super into it. So that is right there in the canon of Aladdin for me, is that TV show. Okay. Do you guys remember Captain N, the Game Master?
Mm-hmm.
I loved that
Vaguely.
show. So, okay, the premise was a boy in the real world gets sucked into his Nintendo TV, and he is the game master, and a bunch of different video game characters rely on him to like save the video game world from this evil pair of like lips or face stretched across like a thing. Anyway, so it just had all of these different Nintendo video game crossovers, and it was this cartoon, and I just really, really liked this show. Captain Planet. No one mentioned Captain Planet. Tiny Toon Adventures. Gem. I was actually a big fan of Gem. James was talking about being a fan of shows that aren't traditional boy shows. Gem was not a boy show. It was about a girl who was the front of a girl band, and she had magic earrings that could make holograms of anything she wanted. And I loved Gem. Gem was awesome. DuckTales. Fraggle Rock had both a puppet show and a cartoon show. It had 2 versions, and I loved both of them. I loved the puppets more, but I also liked the cartoon. And then for my number 20, I put one that only had 1 episode. It only aired the pilot. But I remember loving the pilot and being so disappointed that they never made any more. It was the Crash Test Dummies.
So I looked into that. It wasn't a pilot. It was a special.
It's a special, but I've also heard it referred to as a pilot.
Really? Okay. Because I would consider that from my list, too. I'm like, was this a TV show or is this a movie?
So you remember this one?
Oh, yeah. I remember Crash Test Dummies. Oh, yeah.
It was based on the commercials.
They had commercials and toys.
Yeah, the toys were great.
They had these toys, Crash Test Dummies, that like would break apart, basically. Like they had cars that would smush, and like their heads and arms and legs would pop off if they got in a car accident. Anyway, they turned this into a TV show special, and I loved it so much. So that's my 11 through 20.
Do you guys want to hear some quick honorable mentions?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll do ones that you guys have not talked about at all. So there was COPS, which stood for Central Organization of Police Specialists. That one I used to watch all the time. Mask, James, you kind of mentioned that one. What did Mask stand for? I don't remember what Mask stood for.
Remember.
Something I've got it here. Mobile Armored Strike Command, and that was very much like a G.I. Joe Transformers kind of thing with guys who wore masks. I had a bunch of those toys, including the Giant Mountain. That was cool.
Command spelled with a K?
It was. Command was with a K. Yeah.
I'm just realizing that now.
Doug, which was a Nick show, which was kind of about, it was like a middle school cartoon about this kid named Doug, and he had this imagination, but also was dealing with like just being in middle school, with having friends and bullies and crushes and all that kind of stuff.
That was definitely after me, but I know about Doug.
My
Gargoyles. Son watched Doug.
Yeah, Doug's good. Zach, I'm surprised Gargoyles didn't make your list, even your top 20.
I didn't like Gargoyles.
You didn't like Gargoyles?
It was too dark for me.
I liked Gargoyles. Super Dave had a cartoon, Super Dave Osborne.
Mhm.
That I love that one.
Yeah.
I also have a couple, let's see, G.I. Joe, Tailspin Maniacs. Oh, Super Ted was about this teddy bear that was a reject from the factory, and this yellow and green spotted alien comes to Earth and gives the teddy bear superpowers and becomes Super Ted and like flies around and saves people. I used to watch Super Ted all the time.
Hmm.
And I also have the list of shows that were marketed to me, even though the properties were not for me whatsoever. And those were Police Academy, Beetlejuice, and RoboCop. Were all cartoons I watched, but definitely was not watching those movies at that age.
Yeah.
Sure. I remember watching Police Academy and Beetlejuice
Yep.
cartoons. What was the other one? RoboCop?
RoboCop, yeah.
I remember that existing, but I don't really remember watching it.
There might have been a Rambo cartoon
There was
also.
a Rambo cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember like in the late 80s, early 90s, there'd be advertisements for like RoboCop toys, Terminator toys for kids.
Mhm.
And like, it's just crazy to me that like here are, alien
Those-
toys. Here's
Those
like
were rated
movies,
R movies.
right? Rated R
Yeah.
movies, not appropriate for 5-year-olds whatsoever. But here, come buy the toy. Why not?
For sure. I mean, Star Wars, not that Star Wars was rated R, but Star Wars changed all that. That's when they were like, oh crap, we can make a toy out of
We can make a
things.
toy. Yep.
Yeah. If we can make a toy out of things, we're gonna do it and see if it works.
And all those commercials had like frosted blocks that whatever car they had would drive through.
Right.
Every single one. Drive through the frosted blocks.
For sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was our list of our top 10 favorite kids cartoon TV shows. Hopefully that was fun. If we didn't mention your favorite cartoon show, then you probably are of a different generation. I guess. Because I think we covered most of them, at least
That's
as far
right
as we're
on.
concerned. We appreciate you listening. If there's one that we didn't mention that you think we should check out that might actually hold up, please make the suggestion. I'm not gonna watch it, but I'm happy to hear about it. So
I will watch the opening credits. I'll get the theme song. That's about it.
I will also say that of the people that I follow on Letterboxd who have written reviews for Chippendale Rescue Rangers, they all seem to like that movie. So it's quite possible that if you have no connection to Chippendale, you will have an entirely different experience watching that movie on Disney Plus.
For sure.
Just to be fair, I think all of us brought some level of baggage to the party.
For sure.
It's mostly getting positive reviews for sure. And even someone in the Cinereelists Discord said they're so excited for us to talk about it. They loved it.
Right.
So sorry for disappointing you.
Next week, we will be talking Top Gun Maverick. So if you want to do a little bit of pre-watching, check that one out. It's in theaters at some point this week.
Tuesday, I believe, the 24th.
Tuesday. Okay.
Wow, Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah.
Starting to. Well, I think this is officially the first movie of the summer, technically, like according to the traditional summer calendar for movies. Lately, it doesn't feel like we have a summer calendar because they release Marvel movies at the beginning of May and in February and stuff like that. But traditionally, I believe this would be the first weekend of summer movies. So yeah, check out Top Gun Maverick. Also, don't forget, find us on YouTube at Cinereelists. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Leave us an Apple Podcast review or send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. You could also find us on social media at Cinereelists on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. I feel I'm going to do a TikTok, guys. I'm going to do another TikTok. There's 2 up there. I'm going to do a third one. This is the big announcement. I joined an exclusive club this week. I joined the AAA24 club. Have you guys heard about this?
No. What is the
that?
AAA24 club?
It's literally A24's club, that you have to pay $50 a year for, and you get exclusive A24 things.
Like
what?
Like items?
You'll have to go to our TikTok to find out what my welcome package contained from my AAA24 club membership.
Okay.
I'm gonna do a special.
I'm guessing it's a t-shirt.
It's not a t-shirt. I wish it was a t-shirt. That would be awesome. You'd think for $50 it'd be a t-shirt, but it's not.
Wait, you got one box, or do you get
I think I only get
year?
4 boxes over the course of the year. But for a company that charges $35 for a hat, I feel like they're being a little stingy on what comes in these boxes. But you'll have to check out the TikTok at Cinereelists. You could also follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaubin.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Peter SKB.
We'll see you people next week. Until then, keep it Cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.